Chapter 173. It was impossible to predict what was on the other side of the stone bridge. There were some roads that they knew were dangerous, but they couldn't not walk because there was no other way. "We can't turn back. I don't want to be smashed into a meat patty by those giants." Nangong Yun was not afraid of challenges, so she volunteered to step onto the bridge. "Let's go. I'll lead the way." Chu Tian stood in front of the bridge and looked over it. "There is a problem with this bridge. You'll have an accident if you walk around like this." The armored giant with boundless power and the cyclops that evolved at an extremely fast speed. Forget about that. But now there was a problem with a bridge? How could they not let others have fun? If Chu Tian said there was a problem, then there must be a problem. Everyone stopped to look. The stone bridge was very narrow in the void, but to a human's eyes, it was very wide. It was 10 meters wide and the floor was covered in exquisite crystal stones. Each crystal stone was engraved with a source energy array that was releasing strong waves of spirit energy. Lin Mu was a mercenary, so he was very sensitive. "This bridge seems to be covered in traps. If we take a wrong step, it will be unimaginable." "That's right, we can't trigger any traps." Chu Tian carefully looked at the stone floor for a few minutes. "It's a good thing the runes on the stone floor don't change, so as long as you follow me, you can safely cross the stone bridge." Yun Yao looked over. There were exquisite crystal runes on the floor, but with her knowledge and abilities, she couldn't understand a single one of them. It was clear that this was the work of an ancient civilization. Chu Tian didn't dare say he could solve all of them, but it was more than enough to identify the traps. "Pay attention, don't make a mistake." After Chu Tian said this, he stepped on the stone slab. The stone slab lit up, but Chu Tian turned a blind eye to it. He walked to the second stone slab, then the third, the fourth. The stone slabs that Chu Tian walked on all lit up, but there was no power that activated them. The 6 of them couldn't help secretly rejoicing. It was fortunate that he was following Chu Tian, otherwise it would have been hard for him to even take a single step in the trial space. The 6 of them memorized the route that Chu Tian had taken. Whichever stone slab Chu Tian stepped on, they would step on it. They did not encounter any danger along the way. Their speed also increased from slow to fast, and finally became faster and faster. In less than half an hour, they had safely moved half of the stone slabs. Something that no one could have imagined happened. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The sound of wings flapping at high speed suddenly came from all directions. Around the stone bridge, in the endless void, giant monsters over 3 meters tall appeared one after another. These monsters were black and yellow in color and looked like insects. Not only did they have sickle-like curved claws, but there was also a pitch-black stinger behind their huge abdomens. There were too many of them. There were more than 100 of them. Yun Shao gave a pitiful cry. "Fuck. I finally understand why this place is called the Giant Hive. So this is the place where the fucking giants keep bees. We've entered a hornet's nest by mistake. What should we do now?" Nangong Yun slapped his head. "Stop howling. Don't you feel ashamed? Aren't they just a few insects?" Yun Shao gave an exaggerated shout. "Insects? Please, elder sister, you say it so easily, but what kind of insects are these? You've seen several hundred gene insects before. Ever since we came to this labyrinth, we've all turned into insects." Everyone had a bitter look on their faces. The giant bees did not seem like they were easy to deal with. Not to mention that the stone bridge was covered in traps, so they could not use them at all. In this kind of situation, defending against the attacks of the giant bees was harder than ascending to the heavens. Yun Yao quickly raised her hands and the thunder spirit bead began to revolve around her. An ear-piercing sound rang out. Countless giant bees were like bombers flying towards their prey in the center of the stone bridge. "Kill them." Chu Tian's sword Qi slashed at a giant bee and cut it in half. When he saw that the giant bee was not as strong as he imagined, Chu Tian let out a sigh of relief. Who would have thought that the 2 halves of the giant bee's corpse would fall onto the stone bridge, landing on a stone slab about 10 feet away? The trap had been activated. A bolt of lightning soared into the sky and instantly turned the giant bee's corpse to ashes. That's right, it turned to ashes and was blown away by the wind. The crystal floor was as smooth as new, without a single bit of residue left. The other half of the corpse fell down and also fell onto a restriction. A layer of energy was released and the other half of the corpse turned to stone before turning to dust. Too terrifying. The entire bridge was a death trap. Under the attack of the giant bees, if they were careless and made a single mistake, they would be instantly killed by the trap. The thunder spirit bead flew high into the sky and released a giant lightning net, instantly covering the 7 of them. When the giant bees hit the lightning net, they were instantly electrocuted and had no way of attacking. My spirit energy is limited. With such a large barrier, I can't keep it up for long. Yun Yao knit her brows and shouted, "Quickly destroy them, don't let them get close, otherwise we'll all be finished." Wind and Cloud Sword Song. In this kind of crisis, it was time for Feng Kai Dai to play her role. She was a wind-attributed cultivator with a long range and fast attack speed. Moreover, the Wind and Cloud Sword Song was very concentrated, so when it came to dealing with a large group of monsters, she was the best choice. Countless blue sword chi rushed out like a wave and the giant bees were cut down one by one. However, this did not effectively eliminate the danger. The giant bees were too far away. Other than Feng Kai Dai, it was very difficult for the others to effectively attack the giant bees. The number of giant bees was also far higher than they had expected. When they gathered around the stone bridge, they slowed down their advance. Rows of pitch-black tail needles stood on end. Each needle was covered in a dark green glow, which was the color of poison. Yun Xiao wiped his sweat. "Don't be like this." Su, 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 su. Hundreds of bee needles, just like a dense rain, wildly shot at the stone bridge. Each needle's speed was subsonic and could not be seen with the naked eye. It was just a dense mass of black shadows. There was a popping sound around the lightning net. This was the sound of the bee needles exploding after being hit by the lightning. Yun Yao's face became uglier and uglier. "This is bad. There are too many poison needles. My lightning is not a physical defense. It can't block this many high-frequency attacks." The lightning and flames were not physical. So when it was used to form a defense, it was not as strong as metal, earth, or ice. When each needle fell on the lightning net, the lightning would gather its power and explode it. This process consumed a lot of energy and it had to be replenished after each defense. Under this kind of dense attack, the lightning net could not withstand it at all. Finally, a poison needle pierced through the lightning net and fell on everyone. Ice Mountain Shield. Fang Han's body released a white aura that condensed into a giant shield. The poison needles fell on the shield and pierced deep into it, but they were not able to tear it apart. "Go!" Fang Han sent the giant shield flying through the rain of needles. Ice explosion. The giant shield suddenly exploded and countless ice shards flew in all directions. Quite a few of the giant bees did not have time to dodge and were hit by the ice shards, falling down from the sky. However, it was not strong enough. Fang Han's cultivation base was not high, so he could not deal too much damage. Another batch of poison needles flew out from another direction. Everyone quickly put up their defenses. One of the poison needles fell down and stabbed into a nearby floor. The crystal floor was immediately activated, and a green poisonous substance was released from the restriction. Like a cloud, it instantly enveloped everyone. Everyone's faces fell. Damn it! These stingers could also activate the restriction on the floor. Not only did they have to make sure they were not hit by the stingers, they also had to make sure the stingers did not fall nearby and activate the terrifying traps and restrictions. Absorb. Lin Mu summoned the Willow Tree Source Spirit. After a long time of recovery, most of the Willow Tree Source Spirit's vitality had been restored. Several willow branches reached into the poison trap and quickly absorbed all of the poison. Chu Tian shouted when he saw this, "Don't defend. Attack with all your might. Destroy them." If they kept fighting like this, it was only a matter of time before they lost. They might as well not defend and fight with their backs to the wall. They would use the fastest speed to destroy these damn giant bees. That's what I was thinking. Thunderbird. Yun Yao's hands came back and the thunder net gathered together. It was added to the thunder spirit bead and turned into a 7-8 meter long giant bird that charged at the giant bees. Under Yun Yao's attack, Feng Katie's several dozen sword chi followed. Although the others did not have strong long-range attacks, they still did their best to defend. Yun Yao was truly worthy of being an illustrious soul realm cultivator. Wherever the Thunderbird went, the giant bees were swept away. In just a short while, they had killed several dozen of them. Good. Nangong Yun loudly cheered. With this speed, it wouldn't take long for the giant bees to be completely wiped out. But at this time, suddenly, another pitch-black wasp appeared. This wasp was clearly different from the others. Its entire body shone with a metallic luster, and it was like a meteor as it launched a sneak attack on the group. Its sickle-like forelimbs slashed down, and a sword chi-like energy swept towards the stone bridge. This is bad. If this attack came, it would trigger at least 5-6 traps. Moreover, it was very close to everyone, so who knew what would happen? Nangong Yun quickly sent out a fist. The red spirit energy shattered the sword chi and hit the giant bee at the same time. Nangong Yun was pushed back several steps and her feet stepped on the edge of the safe ground. Another centimeter. Then she would step on the other stone slab. Nangong Yun broke out in a cold sweat. She had thought that she had safely escaped, but the giant bee that had been pushed back raised its tail and shot out a jet-black poisonous stinger. Nangong Yun subconsciously dodged and the stinger hit the stone slab with the trap. Countless runes lit up. This is bad. A surge of energy surged out. Yun Xiao wanted to pull her back. Nangong Yun loudly shouted, but it was too late. A shockwave exploded out. Nangong Yun, Yun Xiao, and Feng Kaidai were the closest, so they were the first to be hit. They were sent flying 4-5 feet away from the stone bridge and fell into the bottomless abyss. Several giant bees suddenly chased after them. They grabbed the injured people and turned to head into the bottomless abyss. Fuck, save me. Yun Zhao's pitiful cry disappeared into the darkness. The other giant bees saw that they had suffered heavy losses and could not break through, so they all retreated. Damn. Yun Yao knit her brows as she looked over the ruined stone bridge. Her eyes filled with rage as she clenched her fists. The three of them fell off the bridge and were taken away by the giant bees. It seems like they're dead for sure. Lin Mu and Fang Han's hearts were filled with fear. This kind of trial is impossible to complete. It was too harsh. This bridge was not something a normal person could cross. In the entire central state city, perhaps only Chu Tian's knowledge could see through the traps. If anyone else met this stone bridge, they could only try their luck and it was almost impossible for them to reach this place. Who would have thought that the trial space would not only involve a dangerous stone bridge, there would also be hundreds of monsters blocking them. This kind of difficulty was just too harsh. How many hours had passed? Nangong Yun and the others had already died. How long could the others last? It's still too early to make a conclusion. Chu Tian looked into the endless void and said, "These B-type demon beasts are the giant type. They won't immediately kill their prey and will lock it up in their nest. If we can catch up, perhaps we can catch up to the three of them." Nest? Lin Mu said with a bitter smile, "These several hundred giant bees are already hard to deal with. I'm afraid the nest won't be easy to break through." Fang Han nodded. The bees sent out to look for food should be the lowest level. Inside the nest, there should be a bee king or queen. With the current situation, not to mention reaching the nest, if they were attacked by the giant bees on the way, it would be a problem for them to safely pass through with their current strength. "I have a way. Bring a few giant bee corpses over." Lin Mu and Fang Han carefully found 2 complete giant bee corpses. This is a demon beast called the giant bee. Its senses are very low level and its intelligence is not high. Chu Tian said as he cut open the giant bee's body with his sword. He took out a yellow waxy liquid from inside that gave off a fragrant smell. This is called beeswax. If we apply this beeswax to our bodies, the giant bees won't attack us. Lin Mu and Fang Han revealed looks of admiration. They were mercenaries, but they knew nothing about this. On the other hand, Chu Tian once again displayed his knowledge. If they could successfully avoid a bee attack, they might not necessarily die in the giant bee's nest. They couldn't just leave the three of them alone, right? So even though they knew it was dangerous, they still had to go. Chapter 174. The giant bees were probably weaker than the laborers, so even though they had killed many giant bees, they did not gain any trial points. In other words, these monsters had no value at all. Going through the beehive as soon as possible was the best choice, but now that Nangong Yun and Feng Kaidai had been captured, Chu Tian couldn't just abandon them. Even if he knew it was very dangerous, he still had to go to the giant beehive. Chu Tian, Yun Yao, Lin Mu, and Feng Han were all covered in fresh beeswax. This kind of thing did not last long, so if they did not rescue them quickly enough, they would be in danger. Yun Yao was skeptical at first, but when she followed Chu Tian along the stone bridge, they met several giant bees. These giant bees were clearly flying nearby, but they did not have any interest in the four of them. She was finally convinced. Chu Tian was not only knowledgeable, but he was also proficient in miscellaneous knowledge. How old did he look? Even if he started studying in his mother's womb, it would not be enough. They found the hive. When Lin Mu and Feng Han looked over, their eyes almost popped out. The two of them were mercenaries. They traveled extensively and often took risks. It was common for them to venture deep into the nests of magical beasts to capture their young and retrieve their eggs. However, compared to this, their previous experiences as mercenaries were like children playing in the mud. At the end of the stone bridge was a cliff similar to the beginning. In front of them was a door to the giant's labyrinth. There were giant bees all around and the ground was covered in all kinds of secretions. The labyrinth door was halfway up the mountain. At the top of the cliff was a giant tumor-like object. It was dark gold in color and had a metallic texture. Thousands of hexagonal honeycombs were densely packed on the top of the mountain. It was like a magnificent, abstract, and eccentric building. How many giant bees were there? Yun Yao felt her scalp tingle. Ordinary bees built their nests on the roofs of trees, and their nests were all hanging down from the trees. These giant bees, on the other hand, directly occupied the mountain peak, hollowing it out and transforming it into a nest. Hurry up, let's go. The three of them were in a daze. Chu Tian called out. Saving people is one thing, but how? Yun Yao had some misgivings. Look at this beehive. There are thousands of hives, and I'm afraid there are thousands of internal paths. It's even more complicated than the giant's labyrinth. It'll be hard for us to lock onto where they've been taken. It would take too much time to get down. Let's not talk about whether they would still be alive. As time passes, the giant bees will continue to evolve and mutate. Whoosh! A white figure stood on Chu Tian's shoulder, proudly crossing his arms in front of his chest, as if saying, "Looks like it's my turn again." Yun Yao seemed to understand something. Fox? This little guy doesn't have any other skills, but he does have some tracking skills. It shouldn't be a problem to find them. What did he mean by no problem? There must be no problem. The fox was very dissatisfied with the wording of its master and was about to protest when Chu Tian grabbed its tail and lifted it up. Go. Master really didn't know his manners. This fox has not even discussed the conditions yet. The little fox had no other choice but to enter the beehive. The beehive was wet and there was secretion everywhere. There were pupae and young bees everywhere, and there was a strange smell in the air. It was a good thing the giant bees were big, so humans could pass through the places they passed through. The little fox also put a layer of beeswax on its body. While it sniffed, it walked through the complex beehive. The four of them followed behind the little fox. They met large amounts of giant bees on the way. Some of the hives were very big, with several hundred bees densely packed together. There wasn't even a place to stand. Just the density was enough to make one's scalp go numb. It was a good thing they had Chu Tian's method to avoid being attacked by these giant bees. Otherwise, with their strength, it would be strange if they weren't torn to pieces. The little fox suddenly called out a few times. Chu Tian revealed a look of joy. We found it, let's go. The four of them entered a large beehive. This beehive seemed to be where the giant bees stored their food. The space was very big and they could smell a strange fragrance as soon as they entered. Lin Mu and Feng Han asked in a surprised voice, "What kind of smell is this? Why is it so fragrant?" This beehive was like an indoor swimming pool. There were several large pools and each pool was filled with a pale golden liquid. There were several strange worker bees busying themselves nearby, throwing various materials into the pools. This is the bees' brewing room. Normal beehives also have this kind of structure. The bees will collect pollen and place it in the brewing room to ferment, finally producing honey. Chu Tian said this and then his voice changed. The giant bees are so big, so they definitely won't collect pollen. Rather, they will capture all kinds of life forms, herbs, and elixirs. They will extract their life essence and spiritual energy, using a special method to ferment these things. This kind of spiritual supplement is the favorite ingredient of the giant tribe to make honey wine, so it's called giant honey. The little fox excitedly called out. He threw himself into the pool and drank the unbrewed honey in large gulps. Chu Tian's eyes flashed when he saw this. It can't be? Could it be that this honey isn't created by the trial and is real spiritual honey? The little fox's performance answered Chu Tian's question. There was a whirlpool on the surface of the honey pool and the honey in the pool quickly fell. In just a few seconds, it had been completely drunk. Yun Yao's eyes almost popped out. It can't be. How did it do this? This pool could be used as a human swimming pool and it was over 4-5 meters deep. It could be imagined how much honey there was inside. The little fox had drunk it all in less than a minute. How did it do this kind of thing? Chu Tian said to the three of them, the giant bee's honey is a great supplement, comparable to a high-grade elixir. But these pools are only half-finished products and there are a lot of the giant bee's poisonous secretions inside. We can't drink it, so this fellow has it easy. Let's go, finding the person is more important. They found a beehive in the brewing room that seemed to be used to store materials. There were large amounts of elixirs inside and in the center of these things, there were several fellows covered in a translucent gel that couldn't move. Found it? Chu Tian's netherworld sword was covered in blue and white flames. After looking at them for a while, the blue and white flames fell onto the gel and quickly dissolved it. Wow! Nangong Yun was finally free. This is so uncomfortable. What is this disgusting thing? Feng Kaidai was also in an unprecedented sorry state. She who always cared about her image was currently covered in a vicious gel. Yun Xiao shouted out in an exaggerated manner, I don't have any strength left. This is a secretion from the giant bee. It will slowly absorb the spirit energy in your body and turn it into a layer of sealing energy. You will slowly die in this layer and all your energy and essence will be absorbed into it. Finally, it will be used by the giant bee to make honey. Boss is too loyal. I thought I was done for. Nangong Yun expressed her gratitude as she gave Chu Tian a large hug. Chu Tian did not have time to take advantage of this there is something important we need to do. Let's go. What? Kill the queen bee. Kill the queen bee. Everyone's eyes popped out in shock. In this giant bee's nest, there were at least 100,000 giant bees. Killing the queen bee was just too crazy. Actually, I don't want to waste time here, but since I'm here, I can't miss it. Chu Tian revealed a mysterious expression. The best honey is with the queen bee. That thing is very beneficial to cultivation. Just drinking a few mouthfuls will see immediate results. It's the strong? The giant bee's honey is made from various elixirs and the essence of living beings. This trial space has existed for so many years and this honey has been stored for so many years. It is a top-quality 10,000-year-old honey that can greatly improve a person's foundation and even increase their lifespan. It's this good? Everyone was completely shocked. Yun Yao was moved. Her grandfather was already old and if she could bring back some 10,000-year-old honey, it would increase her grandfather's lifespan by several years. This would be a large benefit to the Yun family. She asked, will the queen bee be hard to deal with? If we are not prepared, we will definitely die. The queen bee specializes in spiritual attacks and we will be killed as soon as we get close. Then what do we do? You don't need to worry about the queen bee. I will leave a seal on your bodies that will weaken your spiritual fluctuations. This way, the queen bee's main target will be me. Nangong Yun said, how can we do that? I should be the one taking the risk. You are everyone's leader, everyone is counting on you to lead the team. Relax, it's a spiritual attack. It really can't do anything to me. Otherwise, if I didn't have any confidence, I wouldn't dare take this risk. Everyone's faces were filled with question marks. Yun Yao and Feng Katie's hearts skipped a beat. They remembered a detail. In the Central State City Great Games, Yi Hen had used a spiritual attack on Chu Tian, but it was Yi Hen who was defeated. Could it be that Chu Tian had some kind of unknown talent that could reflect spiritual attacks? I'll deal with the queen bee, but that doesn't mean you can just watch the show. Chu Tian said with a serious expression, the queen bee must have a king bee protecting her. The queen bee can only use spiritual attacks, but the king bee is the opposite. The king bee's battle strength and defense are very high, so it is very hard to deal with. When I fight with the queen bee, you must help me stall the king bee, otherwise everything will be for naught. Alright. Even the biggest monster, the queen bee, has been dealt with by you, so what does a trivial king bee matter? When the 7 of them finished their discussion, the little fox had a round belly. It was like a balloon that was filled with air as it lay on the ground, gasping for air. Nangong Yun said in a surprised voice, "What's wrong with it?" Chu Tian rolled his eyes. What else can it do? It ate too much. However, it was strange. This was the first time he had seen this little fellow eat its fill. Yun Yao, Lin Mu, and Fang Han all had looks of amazement. The entire beehive's several pools of honey had actually been drunk by this fox in one go? This was made from the essence of countless beings and elixirs, so each drop was very valuable. Just how strong was this energy? Even an expert on the level of Shen Fengho would not be able to withstand even a tenth of it. This little fox had drunk it all, and it had only eaten its fill. Monster. This master and pet were both monsters. Chapter 175. Stop pretending to be dead. Chu Tian grabbed the little fellow's tail. Find the queen bee's position. The little fellow let out a burp. That round belly was like a balloon that deflated, instantly deflating. It jumped up like a carp and its 2 sparkling eyes released a glow. It was like when it heard the queen bee's name, it thought of something delicious. Damn master! Since it was born, it had never had a full meal. Was it easy to fill its stomach for the first time? It did not even have time to think about it before its master said it was hungry again. Chu Tian rubbed his chin and his eyes revealed a trace of surprise. The little fellow seemed to have grown a bit fatter. The little fox had indeed grown a bit fatter. The amount of energy it drank was enough to make a true soul realm expert explode 10-8 times. So, even with the little fox's appetite, it was still a bit hard to eat. It seemed like this trial was very beneficial to the little fox. Chu Tian did not want to waste any time. This was because what attracted people to the trial space was not the fortuitous encounters and treasures. This was because after Chu Tian created Miracle Commerce, he had more money in his hands and normal treasures were not hard to obtain. The Trial Tower's ultimate hidden treasure, the ancient unsolvable question, as well as the secret to surpassing life and death was not normal, so it attracted Chu Tian even more. The queen bee. Since it was on the way, he might as well take care of it. As long as he did not waste too much time, Chu Tian did not mind taking some benefits. After the little fox was thrown to the ground, it immediately locked onto a direction and brought the 7 of them to quickly rush over. The little fox was clearly more agile than before. It moved several dozen meters in an instant, using its strange movement technique. There was only a gray mist in the air and it appeared several hundred meters away. In this kind of situation, even if Chu Tian opened his mind's eye, he could not catch the little fellow's movements, because it was too fast. With the little fox's current escaping ability, even if it met an expert like Chu Xinghe, it could at least escape unscathed. No matter what the little fellow's battle strength was, just its speed and agility was enough for it to complete its scouting mission. The structure of the beehive was extremely complex, even more so than the giant's labyrinth itself. Chu Tian's map couldn't possibly be so detailed as to mark the location of the giant hive. In fact, the giant hive itself was a hidden map. If one didn't come to this place, the map wouldn't even show it. Since it was a hidden map, there should be hidden rewards. Where is this? They're all big worm eggs, so disgusting. When they walked into the new hive, everyone was stunned by the scene in front of them. The walls and floor of the entire hive were densely covered with white eggs, and there were over 10,000 of them. Every single egg was the size of a human head, smooth, round, and pure white like jade, and the outline of the larvae could be faintly seen. Right in front of them was an incomparably large insect cultivation pond. Thousands of white and fat large insects were rolling around in it. Each of the larvae was about the size of a human baby, and they emitted a series of sharp squeaking sounds that made one's scalp go numb. The surroundings were filled with busy worker bees, seemingly feeding immature larvae. The giant bee larvae are also very dangerous. These insects have a very strong energy inside them, so they can explode. It doesn't matter if it's just a few, but if hundreds or thousands of larvae explode together, the power will be very impressive. So we should try not to touch them. After the larva hive, it should be the queen bee's position. The little fox went down another floor and arrived at a completely different place. This was the lowest level of the hive. Compared to the first few layers that extended in all directions, the space at the lowest level was very spacious. Also, there was no sticky secretion like the other hives. On the contrary, it was clean and tidy, as if it was made of an extremely hard dark gold wax. Even a normal weapon wouldn't be able to leave a mark on it. It was just like a mysterious underground palace. At the very front of the queen bee's hall, there was a high platform made from beeswax. It was shaped like a flower, and there was a giant white and fat queen bee lying on it, as if it was sleeping. Two mountain-like behemoths stood at the side. Their entire bodies were pitch black, as if they were forged from refined iron. They gave off an invulnerable metallic feeling. They were more than 6 meters tall, and their bodies were sturdy and sturdy. Their 4 sickle-like blades were emitting a faint, cold light. 2 queen bees? The 2 largest guardian bees were naturally the so-called queen bees. In addition to the 2 bee queen level guard bees, there were dozens of strong male bees in the hall. These ordinary guard bees were actually miniature versions of the bee queen. But even though they were miniature, they were still more than 4 meters tall, much larger than a human. These male bees were the most loyal guards of the queen bee. Especially the 2 queen bee existences, even the illustrious soul realm Yunyao was not their match. Like this, it was much harder to kill the queen bee. The queen bee hasn't discovered our invasion yet. Chu Tian ordered, "First seal the entrance." Lin Mu nodded and pressed both of his hands on the ground. Cyan-colored elemental energy bloomed, and a layer of tree roots pierced through the solid beeswax floor. Slowly, the roots grew and intertwined with each other, finally blocking the entrance. Fang Han's hands released a cold current that fell onto the thick wall of tree roots. On top of the original foundation, he added a layer of strong ice-attributed energy. If a normal worker bee touched it, they would instantly be frozen. "Let's go." Everyone prepared to move forward. The surrounding guard bees were immediately alerted, and they all flapped their wings to surround them. The giant bees had very low intelligence and did not have the ability to think, so they mostly relied on instinct. When they felt the beeswax aura on their bodies, they did not immediately attack, but rather they released a signal of danger. They were probably saying, "This is a forbidden area, you are not allowed to come near, otherwise you will be killed." The thunder spirit bead flew into the air, and a strong thunder energy gathered in the bead, shooting out like a marble. The queen bee felt the energy fluctuation and immediately woke up. An invisible and strong spiritual energy fluctuation suddenly spread out in all directions, sweeping over the 7 of them. Gee! A sharp alarm sounded. The 2 queen bee immediately guarded the queen bee. The bee guards all revealed their hostility. Their sickle-like blades shone with a murderous aura as they prepared to set up an impenetrable defense formation. The strong energy from the thunder spirit bead had already arrived. It was like a super elastic ball as it bounced around the guard bees. It looked like a powerful chain of lightning as it instantly attacked the several guard bees, blowing them all to pieces. Kill. Nangong Yun brought Yun Xiao, Lin Mu, and Fang Han to the front. Feng Kaidai was responsible for summoning several dozen sword chi to protect them from afar. The guard bees were stronger than the giant laborers. But when they finally reacted, several of them had already been killed. Even if they did not fear death, with this small number, they could not stop everyone. The surroundings were filled with noise. The queen bee was controlling the swarm of bees to come to his rescue, so the hundreds and thousands of giant bees would soon charge in. This was also the reason why Chu Tian had sealed the entrance, but this was only a temporary measure. It wouldn't stop them for long. Only by taking care of the queen bee would he be able to completely eliminate the threat. Flickering flame slash. Several crisscrossing sword glows flew through the air. Several guard bees were cut in half as they fell to the ground. The guard bees saw that they had been completely annihilated and a terrifying killing intent filled the area. The two silent queen bee jumped out and like black lightning, they flew across the ground at a speed hard to see with the naked eye. Those dangerous sides released a cold glow as they slashed at Chu Tian from different angles. Too fast. Their killing intent was very strong. If he was hit by the queen bee, his starlight immortal body would be useless and he would be cut into pieces. Chu Tian did not dare to easily block it. He immediately used his mind's eye to find a flaw and using his hyperfocus ability, he slid forward. The blade brushed past him. There were several deep blade marks on the ground that were still releasing black smoke. The queen bee's weapon was poisonous. The two queen bee quickly turned around in the air. Their four sides opened and a large amount of blade chi fell down like a wild storm. Yun Xiao had only blocked a single blade chi when he was forced back several steps. This queen bee actually knows a fucking overbearing blade art. Block them. I'll kill the queen bee. Chu Tian's body was covered in starlight as he raised his treasure sword that was covered in blue flames. He ignored the queen bee and charged at the queen bee. The air in front of him slightly twisted. An invisible energy was released. It was spiritual energy. The queen bee had used her spiritual energy and turned it into pure energy. This energy was hard to see with the naked eye and could only be seen with the mind's eye. The queen bee was trying to use her spiritual energy to block Chu Tian from a safe area or to kill Chu Tian from a safe area. Chu Tian dodged the spiritual energy wave. The netherworld sword began to gather flames. The queen bee seemed to have realized that the mind's eye could see through invisible spiritual energy, so she simply changed her attack method. Another wave of spiritual energy exploded, but this time it did not turn into an energy wave. Instead, it gathered into densely packed needles that shot out like raindrops. Then it condensed several dozen invisible energy blades. Pa 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 pa. A strange popping sound rang out. The beeswax floor that was as hard as steel suddenly began to crack. It looked like it was splitting open by itself. Shwa. Then several large cracks began to appear. Each one was several dozen meters long and it was like it had been cut by a sharp sword chi. This was the mark of being cut by an energy blade. Everyone felt their hairs stand on end. Because there was no warning at all. There was no sound of breaking through the air or any change in energy. It was like it had appeared out of thin air. Was this a type of attack formed from spiritual energy? Compared to the terrifying spiritual energy of the queen bee, Yi Hen's power was just like a firefly's flame. Everyone was worried for Chu Tian. The queen bee was not an easy opponent. Could he really defeat the queen bee? So, a spiritual energy needle fell onto Chu Tian's chest. The starlight immortal body suddenly exploded and countless specks of light scattered like fireflies, but they did not disappear. The moment they exploded, they quickly gathered together, forming a blade of starlight that quickly stabbed at Chu Tian. This was mind energy? The queen bee had a strong spiritual energy, but it did not have a strong enough consciousness, so it could not form a divine sense. But even like this, spiritual energy turning into mind energy was still very terrifying. Mind energy was a kind of spiritual energy that could control matter. In theory, mind energy could control all matter. Mind energy attacks were invisible and invisible, being shot out with spiritual energy. No matter what matter it was, once the mind energy entered it, it would immediately be controlled by the queen bee's mind. This was why after Chu Tian's starlight immortal body was shattered, the starlight energy did not scatter and instead gathered together to attack again. This was because when the spiritual energy needle stabbed into the starlight immortal body, the queen bee had infused mind energy into Chu Tian's protective starlight. Then it forcefully controlled this layer of defense and peeled off a large piece of skin. Chu Tian did not even have time to stabilize himself before the ground around him began to tremble. His mind's eye swept out. He was shocked. This is bad. The surroundings were filled with the mind energy of the queen bee. Chu Tian was not afraid of spiritual energy attacks, but he never would have thought that the queen bee would not attack him directly. Rather, it would transform the spiritual energy into mind energy and use this kind of spiritual energy to control matter, indirectly attacking him. This queen bee's strength was much higher than what Chu Tian had expected. If it was like this, Chu Tian had no other way. Chapter 176. The mind energy was like a storm and most of the attacks missed. Wherever the queen insect attacked, it was filled with mind energy. Perhaps the queen insect did not expect to use its mind energy to kill Chu Tian. The main hall was made of a special kind of beeswax, a 1,000-year-old beeswax that was as hard as iron. This material was very special, so it could preserve the queen insect's mind energy for a long time. This meant that once the queen insect's power was released, everything in the main hall would become the queen insect's weapon, shield, and could be used as she pleased. This place had become its domain. In an instant, the 1,000-year-old beeswax that was as hard as iron instantly liquefied. The sticky beeswax was like a wave as it fell down on Chu Tian's body. This attack was about to hit Chu Tian. Chu Tian was instantly turned into a statue by the solidified beeswax. Chu Tian's mind's eye had long since seen through the energy changes, and he immediately escaped from the dangerous area. However, he didn't even have time to stand firm when on the originally flat ground, several hundred sharp thorns suddenly rose up from the ground. As hard as iron. As sharp as needles. With Chu Tian as the center, everything within a few meters had turned into a forest of spikes. When each spike rose from the ground, it was like the branches of a tree, splitting into even more spikes. The mind's eye was a kind of divine sense. Divine sense was limited and the mind's eye's ability to see was limited. The thorns had exploded too suddenly and the speed at which they split was too fast. Chu Tian could not completely see through this sudden attack, so he could only try to avoid being hit in the vitals and try to pass through the forest of thorns. Who would have thought that a series of snapping sounds would ring out? Several hundred thorns flew out and it was like a large rain of needles falling onto Chu Tian's body. All of this happened in a short period of time. Those thorns that were harder than iron, with the help of the queen insect's mind energy, it was enough to pierce through an awakened soul cultivator's protective spirit energy. When Chu Tian's back was pierced by dozens of spikes, the spikes immediately softened, turning into sinister leeches, crazily wriggling as they drilled into his wounds. This is bad. The spikes were filled with the queen insect's telekinesis. The queen insect could easily control its shape, harden, and liquefy at any time. The moment it hit Chu Tian, the queen insect would control the wax to liquefy and pour it into Chu Tian's meridians, instantly sealing Chu Tian from the inside out, turning him into a wax man. This way, he would definitely die. He could only give it his all. Raging flame cut. At the critical moment, the Netherworld sword had already reached its peak. The Netherworld ghost flame suddenly rose up and covered his body, cutting off the beeswax that was close to his body. It seeped into his body through his pores, directly burning away the beeswax that had entered his body. This method would also cause considerable damage to the user's body. Chu Tian didn't care that much. The moment the crisis was over, he didn't wait for the queen insect's next attack. Chu Tian disappeared into the forest of spikes and a giant burning sword glow slashed through the spikes with an unstoppable force as it stabbed towards the palace. Boom! A large ball of liquefied beeswax rose into the air and condensed into a shield. The burning sword light flashed. The giant shield was directly cut in half. The smooth cut still had a blue flame burning on it. The burning sword light's might did not decrease at all as it moved forward at an indiscernible speed, slashing at the queen bug in the main hall. The queen bug did not have any close combat abilities, so Chu Tian's sure kill sword was getting closer and closer to the queen bug. At this time, Chu Tian escaped the range of the queen bug's telekinesis, but entered the range of the queen bug's spiritual energy. It was like a needle stabbing into his brain, causing him to feel a tearing pain. Chu Tian's eyes turned black. The entire world fell into darkness. When he came back to his senses, the queen bee and the others had already disappeared. Chu Tian appeared in a giant space with tens of thousands of guard bees surrounding him. They were all flapping their wings, with 4 glowing sickles in their hands. "Stupid intruder!" A cold and cruel voice suddenly echoed between heaven and earth. "Do you think that with your weak strength, you can threaten this king's life?" It had huge wings that were as thin as a cicada's, but it had a body that was similar to a human's. However, its entire head was that of an ugly and repulsive insect. Its body was more than 10 meters tall, and it stood in the middle of countless guard bees like an indomitable king. Chu Tian's lips curled into a smile. "You're finally starting a spiritual battle? Weak spiritual energy, this king killing you is as easy as turning my hand." The queen bee did not have any close combat abilities, but it was an expert in spiritual attacks. It could control the entire beehive and send orders to the 100,000 giant bees, so its spiritual energy was naturally strong. This spiritual domain was several dozen times stronger than Yi Hen's. Even a true soul realm expert would find it hard to resist the queen bee's terrifying spiritual energy. "Accept your death." The tens of thousands of guard bees charged at Chu Tian. "Your spiritual energy is indeed strong, but in my eyes, it's just a giant ball of cotton." Chu Tian's hands came together and he coldly said, "I am just a small flame." An ancient and dignified aura was released. It was like a layer of black smoke soaring into the sky, instantly forming the outline of a demon god. The countless guard bees slammed into Chu Tian and they all gave pitiful cries. Their bodies were swallowed by the black flames, finally turning into black fireballs floating in the air. The queen bee revealed a look of shock as she looked at the demon god. "You're actually using your spiritual energy to ignite this king's spiritual energy." "No, how is this possible?" The black fireballs shot into the sky and suddenly exploded. Countless sparks scattered like fireworks. Countless guard bees were touched by the spiritual flames, and all of them screamed miserably. In the end, they turned into fireballs and exploded once again. Finally, the tens of thousands of guard bees turned into tens of thousands of fireballs. "If you didn't come into direct spiritual contact with me, you would have a large chance of winning. However, from the moment our spiritual energy collided, your defeat was already decided. Now, let me give you a beautiful funeral." Chu Tian gave a laugh and his hands formed several seals. "Demon flame funeral." The queen bee gave a pitiful cry as the countless fireballs seemed to be attracted by something. They all charged at the queen bee's body. The black flames swallowed the queen bee's body and turned it to ashes. The spiritual space collapsed and he returned to the beehive palace. The queen bee's corpse was lying in front of him with its head already cut off. This slash was not Chu Tian's true attack at all, it was just to lure the queen bee into making spiritual contact. So, it did not matter if this slash hit or not. Once the queen bee came into contact with Chu Tian's spiritual energy, its spiritual energy would be burned to ashes by the demon god. Even if it did not hit, it would still die. "You've killed the queen bee. You have been awarded 20 trial points. Current trial points, 190. The number on the jade token continued to jump and instantly increased by 20 points. Chu Tian was puzzled. Was there a mistake? Such a powerful character was given 20 points. Was it the same difficulty as opening a magic cube? It had to be known that the reason Chu Tian could beat it was because of his ability to restrain it. Otherwise, with the queen bee's spiritual energy, even a true soul realm expert would be killed. After losing the queen bee panicked and immediately tried to escape. Nangong Yun and Yun Yao chased after it with all their strength. The 2 queen bees were killed and the 10 trial points were divided among them. Chu Tian looked around the queen bee's body and found something that looked like a golden brick. "I found it." The golden brick thing was not light at all. There was a layer of golden liquid that had a fragrance that was very alluring. "This is the 10,000-year-old spiritual honey. What level is this material? Level 2? Or level 3? It's still a level 2 material. But..." Chu Tian gently tossed the golden brick thing in the air. "It is no longer an elixir, but has a bit of a holy nature. It is a half-step sacred treasure. A half-step sacred treasure. Everyone looked around the queen bee's body and saw that there were over 100 of these golden bricks. Nangong Yun, Yun Yao, and even Feng Kaidai, who was used to seeing treasures, all had round eyes. God, we're rich this time. What was the price of a half-step sacred treasure level 2 material? That was several tens of millions of gold coins. It was not something that could be bought with money. Now it was good. Large pieces, all of these high-quality materials were neatly stacked in front of them. This was a shocking amount of wealth. How do we use this thing? Use your spirit energy to melt it and you can directly use it. Chu Tian threw the brick to Nangong Yun. This honey brick is very dense. It should be able to fill several large jars once it's melted. The first time you use this thing, it will increase your cultivation base by a lot, so everyone should give it a try. He did not finish. A series of crunching sounds entered his ears. When Chu Tian saw this, he was almost filled with rage. He saw the little fox hiding behind him without him knowing, holding a honey brick in its hand that had almost finished gnawing on it. Chu Tian grabbed the little fox's tail and lifted it up. You bastard! You're stealing master's things again. Your butt is itchy, right? The little fox still had a small piece in its claws. It gently tossed it into its mouth and then made a face. Its expression seemed like it was saying, "Didn't master tell everyone to give it a try? This fox is helping you test if it's poisonous or not." Chu Tian's lungs almost exploded with rage. The little fox was still not satisfied. Isn't it just one piece? I haven't even tasted it yet. How about we try another piece? In your dreams. The little fox pointed at the jade token on its neck. It used its claws to draw a circle and then gently cut it. Chu Tian was a bit stunned. You're saying you'll exchange half of your trial points with me? The little fox nodded its head. Chu Tian rubbed his chin and thought about it for a few seconds. He felt that it was worth it. All right, then I'll give you another piece. You have to eat it sparingly, there won't be any more in the future. The little fox happily held it. This time it did not wolf it down, rather it stuck out its tongue and licked it like it was eating a popsicle. It had an intoxicated expression. Feng Kaidai held back her smile as she walked over. Brother Chu, forget it. Since there's so much, letting the fox eat 1 or 2 pieces isn't a problem. The little fox revealed a moved expression. A good person. This fox can only blame itself for not choosing a master. It actually chose a violent and stingy fellow. Chu Tian saw its expression and was filled with anger. Feng Kaidai was also there, so he should have kicked it to Feng Kaidai. If he had done this, then Shen Fengho would have already gone bankrupt from eating it. Everyone found a container and immediately drank the spiritual honey. Lin Mu, Feng Han, and Yun Xiao drank a quarter and felt the spiritual energy in their bodies become so strong that they couldn't handle it. They did not dare drink anymore and quickly sat down to meditate. Chu Tian, Nangong Yun, Feng Kaidai, and Yun Yao all drank half. I'm about to break through. Nangong Yun excitedly gave a low roar. A flame soared into the sky. Her cultivation went from the peak second awakened soul layer to the triple awakened soul. Lin Mu and Feng Han also smoothly reached the triple awakened soul. Yun Xiao was the weakest, but he was still at the peak second awakened soul layer. Finally, Feng Kaidai successfully broke through her bottleneck. The 4 peak second awakened soul layer cultivators had been reborn in an instant. Even Yun Yao, who was at the 4th awakened soul layer, felt her strength increase. It really was worthy of being a precious half-step sacred grade material. This was definitely a good thing. They had never seen an elixir with such an immediate effect. It wasn't that Feng Kaidai and Yun Yao had never seen treasures of the same level, but they had never seen such an immediate effect. Chu Tian saw everyone's rapid progress and his heart was very satisfied with this item. It really wasn't a wasted risk. When Chu Tian was prepared to use it, he was surprised to find that the queen insect's corpse had disappeared and it had left behind a light blue crystal. Spiritual pearl? This was truly an unexpected and pleasant harvest. This kind of thing could only be found and not sought. It was a very rare item that could directly increase one's spiritual energy. Chu Tian melted the spiritual honey and the spiritual pearl together and drank it all in one gulp. A surge of spiritual energy suddenly surged through his body, almost bursting his meridians. Chu Tian did not dare be negligent. He immediately sat down and began to refine the spiritual energy. The energy in the 10,000-year-old bee honey was not just for show. When the large amount of spiritual energy was turned into spirit energy, Chu Tian's cultivation base broke through to the peak second awakened soul layer without any suspense. It was also at this time that the pure spiritual energy in the spiritual pearl was slowly being absorbed by Chu Tian. Chu Tian could clearly feel his spiritual energy wildly increasing. Finally, it reached a critical point. An earth-shattering sound rang out. Chu Tian felt like a lamp had been lit in the depths of his sea of consciousness. An invisible light, with him as the center, broke through the limits of his body and soul, radiating in all directions. Nangong Yun said in a surprised voice, "This strength. Is it the mind's eye?" Yun Yao shook her head with a serious expression, "No. Even the mind's eye is not this strong. It seems like he has broken through to a new realm." That's right. The queen insect's spiritual energy had been absorbed by Chu Tian. After fusing it with his consciousness, it had already formed a large amount of divine sense. Now, Chu Tian's divine sense had increased. It had already surpassed the hyperfocus and mind's-eye realms. Now it had reached the third realm, the mind's lamp. What was the mind's lamp? The mind's lamp. The divine sense lamp. Once the mind's lamp was lit, it could illuminate all living beings. With a single thought, it could shatter the souls of ghosts and demons. The mind's lamp realm's divine sense not only covered a larger area, it also had a certain killing power. In southern Xia, there were only a few people that could open the mind's eye. Chu Tian had not only opened the mind's eye with a trivial early awakened soul realm cultivation, he had also lit the mind's lamp one step further. His divine sense was something that no one in southern Xia could compare to. Chapter 177. Chu Tian wanted to rest for a bit, but there were several explosions coming from above him. Several holes appeared in the ceiling. A large number of giant bee larvae that had turned scarlet fell down, suddenly exploding and sending out waves after waves of violent energy. It was as if the bombs of a bomber were constantly falling down. Chu Tian quickly shouted, "The beehive's self-destruct sequence has been activated, quickly go." Perhaps this was the beehive's self-control. Once the queen bee was killed, the larvae would explode, destroying the intruder and the beehive, ending in mutual destruction. Chu Tian quickly put away the 10,000-year-old spiritual honey and the group quickly left the main hall. The structure of the beehive was very complex, but it was a good thing the little fox was leading the way, allowing them to escape before the beehive completely collapsed. There were tens of thousands of giant bees flying in the sky. When they lost the queen bee's command, they became wild and began to kill each other, no longer distinguishing between friend and foe. This meant that their disguise had lost its effect and they were attacked as soon as they came out. Chu Tian spent a lot of effort to kill his way out, finally leaving this hidden map and returning to the giant's labyrinth. This was another palace. From the map, this place was called the puppet room. Because they had passed through a hidden map, they could save at least 3/4 of the journey. Everyone looked around. There was plenty of light and it was very bright. There were several large bronze-colored treasure chests in the corner, but when they entered the labyrinth palace, the first thing they saw was not the treasure chests, but rather a row of giants standing in the center of the main hall. These giants were different from the armored giant guards. They looked more delicate and small, but that was only relatively speaking. These giants were around 15 meters tall and their bodies were tightly packed. They were covered in large amounts of runes that sparkled with light, looking very eye-catching. Before one wave had even settled, another wave had risen. What did they encounter this time? Chu Tian carefully looked at these fellows. Although they were releasing a strong aura, there were no energy fluctuations. His eyes suddenly lit up. These aren't monsters from the trial space, there's something fishy about them. The 7 of them slowly approached the giant fellows. This result was not fake. These things did not react at all. Although they were enveloped in the light of treasures, They did not give off any sense of oppression or danger. It was as if they were inanimate objects that could not move. The 7 of them looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. Nan Gongyun's eyes swept around, and a hint of surprise flashed in her beautiful eyes. Who cares? There's a bronze chest here, give me the key. I want to open the treasure chest. A few large bronze chests were placed in the puppet chamber. It was made of plain yellow copper. It was rectangular in shape, about 2 to 3 meters long, and half the height of a person. It looked very simple and unadorned, as if it had been here for many years. Chu Tian went to study the motionless giant. Feng Kaidai, Yun Yao, and the others surrounded the treasure chest, all of them filled with anticipation and apprehension. Nan Gongyun excitedly and nervously rubbed her hands together. She held 2 exquisite copper keys in her hands and gestured at the keyhole a few times. I'm going to open it. Open it. Yun Yao couldn't wait any longer. The moment the key was inserted into the keyhole, a suction force sucked the key in and automatically rotated once. The lines that spread around the keyhole lit up. Kacha! The bronze treasure chest had been opened. Nan Gongyun forcefully pushed the chest open. This seemingly large chest was actually filled with gold, gems, and diamonds. It was dazzling and made people feel mysterious, but it was just normal jewelry. Although it was valuable to normal people, it was not enough to enter the eyes of these people. These valuable jewelry were just fillers. There were several real treasures that were placed on top of the pile. There were several thick jade slips and a golden ancient jade talisman. What is this? Nan Gongyun picked up a jade slip and looked over it. It was filled with words that she could not understand. Was this an ancient cultivation technique? It didn't seem like it. There were many pictures inside that seemed like tools for dismemberment. Trial protection talisman? Nan Gongyun saw that this talisman was different from the others. When she picked up the jade talisman, a spiritual energy filled her mind, allowing her to understand the use of this ancient talisman. The jade talisman could release a layer of defense at a critical moment. It could only be maintained for a short moment, but it could block an attack below the true soul realm. This was a life-saving item. Of course it was given to Chu Tian to use. These ancient books should be treasures from the trial space, so we need to find someone to translate them for us. Yun Yao explained, the jade talisman is a special item from the trial space, so it can't be taken out. Truly unlucky. There weren't any treasures like she had imagined. Nan Gongyun opened another bronze treasure chest. What made Nan Gongyun depressed was that she obtained several jade slips that she could not understand, and they were similar to the previous ones. She obtained a new storage bag. As the name suggested, it could store the things obtained from the trial space, preventing her from carrying too many spoils of war. If this thing could be taken outside, it would be a priceless treasure, but it was a pity that it was a special item from the trial space. The jade talisman and the storage bag were items from the secret realm, created by the trial space. They were not real items, so they could not be taken outside. The rewards were too little. Who told the bronze treasure chest to be the lowest level treasure chest? This bronze key was obtained from defeating the laborers. In the giant's labyrinth, the laborers were the lowest level items. Other ancient language. Chu Tian looked at the jade slips. It's a bit like the ancient language. This language is very rare and there aren't many that have been passed down, so I can only understand a part of it. It's over. Chu Tian could only understand a part of it. Then what use did these jade slips have? This isn't a cultivation technique. Chu Tian looked over the jade slips filled with diagrams. This is an ancient mechanical technique manual. Although I can't decipher it, there is someone else who can. This thing is worthless to others, but it is not low to us. After we decipher it, it will be of great help to Tong Xiaoyu. There was only one person in southern Xia that could understand it. This person was not anyone else, it was the young Miss Meng Qingwu. As long as she used her heavenly book source spirit, no matter how ancient the language was, the young miss would be able to decipher it. I understand. Chu Tian was suddenly a bit excited. He pointed at the several dozen giant metal giants in front of him. These are mechanical puppets refined by the ancient race using their refining techniques. Is it useful? Of course. As long as we find a suitable method, We can control them. Their eyes lit up. The ancient giant puppets released an aura close to the true soul realm. If they could find a way to control them, would the giant guard still be a threat? Chu Tian did not know much about mechanical techniques. This was because the mechanical technique was the predecessor of the source energy machinery technique, so it had already been eliminated in the future. In that era, even the planar spaceships had been created, so only the peak source energy machinery technique could create these large and precise products. The mechanical technique was a kind of secret technique that combined source energy arrays, using refining techniques to refine puppets or tools. From a certain point of view, the technique of refining mechanical puppets was a branch of the art of refining. This really was an eye-opener. Chu Tian used his mind's eye to look inside the giant puppets. The giant puppets were indeed refined using refining techniques. Their bodies were made of very simple materials, and although they were very large, the structure was very simple. Around their chests, there was a strange glowing object. Chu Tian jumped in front of the giant puppet's chest and hit it twice, opening its chest. What? He's opened the giant's chest. Chu Tian found a round crystal heart that was quietly sitting in the giant's chest. It could be taken out. As soon as Chu Tian touched this thing, the Jade Trial token sent a message to his mind. You've obtained the giant puppet's heart. Activating the giant puppet will consume 20 trial points. Do you want to activate it? Damn it. This thing had to be tried out. With 20 trial points, he could exchange it for 7-8 elixirs when he left the trial. Chu Tian did not hesitate. Activate? On the Jade Trial token, the number that was glowing quickly decreased, dropping by 20 points. The white light was released and entered the puppet's heart in his hand. Chu Tian could clearly feel the crystal heart jump. The dark golden giant puppet was activated. Its eyes suddenly lit up, and the patterns all over its body lit up. A terrifying and powerful aura spread out. Too cool. It would be great if we could bring this thing out. A giant puppet's destructive might was close to the true soul realm. If they could bring it out, wouldn't they be able to sweep away the experts of Central State? But this was impossible. The materials needed to create this giant puppet was an astronomical figure, and it was impossible to create this many puppets in the trial space, so it had to be an illusion. Chu Tian said to the others, activating a puppet is worth 20 trial points. That much? They were all stunned. How could they have enough to activate this thing? I have trial points. Chu Tian said without any hesitation, I'll do it. Feng Kaidai felt bad. How many trial points would this cost? 100 points is enough to exchange for a sacred herb from the trial space. Sacred herb? Chu Tian was shocked. So trial points were worth this much. Chu Tian generously waved his hand. It doesn't matter, we still have enough time. I'll help you activate the puppet and you can help me earn back my points, right? With this big fellow, we won't be in such a sorry state. Saying it like this was reasonable. Chu Tian spent 120 trial points to activate 6 giant puppets. Like this, Chu Tian only had 50 points left, but Chu Tian did not care about this consumption. There was still a long time left in the trial space. Once the 7 of them had the giant puppets, their ability to survive would increase by a large amount. We've stayed here for another 20 minutes. According to the trial space's style, the longer we stay here, the more trouble we'll encounter. Let's not waste any more time and leave. Chu Tian looked at the map and studied the route first. After entering the secret puppet room, there are several routes and each route will have many forks. Only one of them will lead to the center of the giant's labyrinth. What's the center of the giant's labyrinth? Chu Tian looked at the map and said, from the markings on the map, the center of the labyrinth is called the giant's treasure room. It should be the trial tower's most important and secret place. The treasure room. Do you even need to ask? Now that Nangong Yun had obtained the giant puppets, of course she was filled with confidence. Just based on this name, we should go in. All right, we'll choose the giant's treasure room. Chu Tian had originally come for the Central State Tower's treasure room, so he put the map away. But before we reach the giant's treasure room, we'll have to pass a place called the Craftsman's Palace. There's still quite a distance. Fong Kai-dai felt a bit of a headache. Let's take advantage of the fact that the monsters aren't strong enough to kill our way in. That's right, the longer we delay, the stronger the monsters will become. At that time, even if we have the powerful puppets, we might not be able to stop them. The 7 of them each held a giant heart. These giant hearts could connect the user's senses to the puppet. As long as the distance did not exceed a certain limit, they could use their consciousness to control the puppet. It was very easy to control, and they could use their thoughts to control the battle. This really was a great battle weapon. The 7 of them controlled the giant puppets to open a path in front of them. When they walked out of the puppet room into the labyrinth corridor, there was a large group of monsters in front of them. These monsters looked like knights. Every one of them wore thick and heavy armor and rode steel-clad warhorses. They held long lances in their hands and lined up in front of them in a row. There were quite a few of them. This was the posture of a charge. As expected, they had stayed in the puppet room for too long, and when they entered the corridor, a large group of monsters was already waiting for them. What are you afraid of? Kill your way in. When the large group of iron-armored knights charged forward, the 7 incomparably large puppet giants also charged forward. The iron-armored knights were around the illustrious Soul Realm. In other words, the battle strength of these knights should be around the same as the slave overseers, perhaps even a bit stronger. It was most likely because they had evolved once or twice. However, the giant puppet possessed a speed that didn't match its body size. The moment its pair of crimson fists swung out, a large number of runes containing the power of destruction appeared on its fists. With a single punch, 3 or 4 armored knights were blown into pieces. The iron-armored knights were 4-5 meters tall. The thick and large spears slammed into the giant puppet's body, and the giant puppet's steel body was covered in defensive runes. The iron-armored knight's spears could only create a few small holes and could not cause any damage at all. Yun Xiao controlled the giant puppet and stepped in the middle of the iron-armored knights, instantly gaining 6-7 trial points. This is too refreshing. You guys also have a day like this. See if your grandfather doesn't trample you to death. The 7 giant puppets blocked the iron-armored knights in front of them. It was a completely one-sided battle. The 7 people's trial points continued to rise. Chapter 178. A single iron-armored knight was worth 2 trial points. As they swept through the area, they had killed at least 100 iron knights. Just the trial points alone was a large amount of 200 points, and Chu Tian had obtained over 50 points. In terms of total, they had earned back the cost of activating the puppets. The only regretful thing was that the Iron Knights did not drop too many spoils of war. Most of them were materials, rare metals, and etc. These things were very precious, but it was not impossible to buy them outside. If we continue at this speed, we'll all be rich. In theory, earning back 10 times the trial points isn't strange at all. Everyone was filled with excitement. But this was only in theory. The trial space's environment was constantly worsening. The current giant puppets could move around freely, but that did not mean that in 5 or 10 hours, they would be able to easily defeat a group of monsters. So, time was money. Where are the Iron Knights? Why are they all gone? This old lady hasn't fought to her heart's content yet. Everyone had a look of high morale. Killing one would earn 1 or 2 points, and killing a few would earn several elixirs. Where else could they find such a good thing? When everyone was prepared to go on a killing spree, they found that the Iron Knights they met on the road did not attack at all. Instead, when they saw the 7 of them, they immediately turned around and ran away. Everyone was forced to change from passively attacking to actively chasing after them. This greatly reduced their hunting efficiency. Chu Tian gave a sigh. The trial designer is not an idiot. They would not let people farm points endlessly, otherwise there would be no meaning to the trial. Let's go. Don't be greedy for the trial points. It's more important for us to go to the treasury. Yun Xiao and Nangong Yun gave a sigh. What bad luck. It was a bit of a pity. They had finally managed to control the giant puppet and valiantly wanted to vent their anger, but they found that there was a limit to killing monsters. How could they not be depressed? The giant's labyrinth was connected to a palace, and without a map, It was impossible for them to reach the main palace's treasury. With the giant puppet in hand, they could go on a killing spree in the side palace and obtain large amounts of trial points, but Chu Tian did not want to do this. Time was precious. Instead of wasting so much time in the side halls, it would be better to directly enter the main hall. With the trial space's design, the main hall would definitely be the place with the most treasures. Since that was the case, there was no need to waste time in the side halls. While he still had a decent amount of fighting strength, he could directly rush to the main hall. After all, 6 hours had passed since the trial started. Chu Tian brought the 6 of them to destroy many strange monsters. Just Chu Tian alone was able to obtain around 80 to 90 trial points, as well as a large amount of materials and spoils of war. There was an exit in front. They had arrived at the Craftsman Palace. When the brand new main hall appeared before their eyes, everyone was instantly shocked. This hall's scale was unprecedented, equivalent to 4 or 5 central state plazas put together. There were giant furnaces everywhere, and a group of 30-meter-tall giants were currently brandishing iron hammers to forge weapons and armor. The giant craftsmen were different from the giant guards. Their bodies were shorter than the giant guards by a large amount, and they did not wear any armor, revealing their black granite-like skin. Even their beards and hair were filled with a sturdy texture, looking like they were made of stone. Every single one of them was wearing shorts, and the bulging muscles on their bodies were like hills. The incomparably huge hammers in their hands were flickering with red runes, and they were constantly spewing hot air. Every time the hammers smashed down, the iron embryo would shine red, and at the same time, a large amount of sparks would fly. The entire hall was filled with giant blacksmiths. They had a fiery look on their faces. "They're all giants." Yun Xiao muttered in his heart, "Boss, there seem to be a lot of them. Should we fight them?" Chu Tian estimated the distance with his eyes. This was a bit troublesome. The giant puppets were too flamboyant, so it was impossible for them to silently sneak in. So, they could not pass through the palace without killing over 100 giants. But was killing over 100 giants easy? He did not know how strong these giants were compared to the giant guards, but they were not weak no matter what. There's no other way. Chu Tian made his decision, "We'll fight." This was the only way to the main palace, and there were no secret paths or paths to choose from. So, they had to fight this battle, but they needed to carefully think about how to fight. "We'll lure the giants into the labyrinth and split them up. We'll reduce the pressure and then we'll defeat them one by one." Chu Tian quickly thought of a plan. "Nangong, you're in charge of luring them out. We'll hide in the nearest fork and wait for orders. After Nangong leads a group of giants away, we'll go into the main palace and kill the rest." Alright. Everyone prepared themselves. Nangong Yun controlled the puppet and rushed out of the passage, rushing towards the nearest giant who was forging a weapon. The giant had just raised its head. An iron fist slammed into its face. The runes on the puppet's iron fist began to glow. It was like a violent explosion as the giant fell to the ground. "Go die." Nangong Yun raised the puppet's arms and wildly hammered it. Then she jumped up and stomped down twice. The giant did not even know what happened before its head exploded. "You've killed the giant craftsman. You have obtained 5 trial points. Current trial points, 55. As soon as Nangong Yun smashed the giant's head, a prompt came from the trial jade token. Killing a giant would give her 5 trial points, but Nangong Yun was not too happy about it. This was because the more trial points she obtained, the more powerful the giant was. "Intruders! Kill! Kill!" The other giants angrily roared as they charged forward with their red-hot giant hammers. Mother! This scene was too terrifying. Imagine over 100 angry naked men charging forward. How could they not feel their blood run cold? If they were caught by these naked men, wouldn't the consequences be unimaginable? Nangong Yun hurriedly jumped onto the giant puppet's shoulder, and the giant puppet immediately ran into the tunnel. More than 100 hammer-wielding naked men chased after it. Their speed was much faster than the giant guards, but compared to the giant puppet, it was still slightly lacking. "They're gone. Quickly! Hurry!" Nangong Yun led away most of the giants, and Chu Tian's group of 6 returned to the passage, entering the craftsman's palace again. Chu Tian's plan was very good because with Nangong Yun's lead, most of the giants in the giant's palace had been taken away, leaving only a small half behind. Hurry! Kill them! Yes. Their blood began to boil as they charged forward. The giant craftsmen were very strong and in terms of destructive power, they had reached the peak of the illustrious Soul Realm. Compared to the giant guards, they were still weaker. There were over 100 giants in the palace, but now that Nangong Yun had led away over 60 of them, Chu Tian's group of 6 had to deal with 5-6 each. Although it was a bit difficult, there was still hope. You shameless exhibitionists! Yun Shao charged forward with a roar, "Eat my fist first." The giant puppet's iron fist sent a giant craftsman flying. The others quickly followed suit. Before the other giants could come close, they had already killed 4-5 of them. Then they fell into a bitter battle. Ding! Feng Katie's puppet was hit by a hammer. That burning hammer slammed into the armor, creating a dent in Feng Katie's back. The surrounding area was burnt black. Damn! Although she knew that the giant puppet could not be brought out, seeing the giant puppet injured still made Feng Katie's heart ache. The giant craftsman's hammer was not only destructive, it also contained a strong fire-attributed energy. With a single strike of the hammer, normal steel would turn into molten iron. The 40 craftsmen were not weak, but compared to the giant puppets, they were still lacking. The most important thing was that the monsters created by the trial space were all fake. All the monsters here seemed to have a problem with their intelligence. So they did not know how to cooperate and only knew how to charge forward. How could they be a match for the 6 of them? The entire battle lasted less than 15 minutes. The 40 giants all fell down. Chu Tian had just let out a sigh of relief that he had solved the problem before Nangong Yun came back, when an angry roar suddenly came from the highest part of the hall. There's still one more. The 6 of them had just turned their heads. A blazing red hammer flew through the air. With a loud bang, it smashed into the head of Cloudy Sky's puppet. The entire head was smashed into pieces, and Cloudy Sky staggered and fell to the ground. Fuck! Which bastard hit my head off? Chu Tian did not have time to deal with this stupid fool because after the giant burning hammer spun in the air, it was as if it was attracted by a magnetic force. It quickly returned to the giant's hand. This giant craftsman was different from the others. The giant's skin was crimson and covered in cracks. What flowed through the cracks was actually red lava, as if it was the giant's blood. The air around him was warped by the scorching heat, and he looked like a huge human-shaped furnace. His beard, hair, and eyes were all red, as if they were spitting out tongues of fire. There was a strong aura that came from it. Lin Mu said in a surprised voice, "This seems like a leader." Fang Han snorted and said, "Who cares what it is? I don't believe that it can beat all 6 of us." Yun Shao crawled up from the ground. Most of the puppet's head had been smashed to pieces and the remaining half had melted. Luckily, the puppet did not have any weak points. As long as the controller was not hit, the puppet could still move. "Destroy it! Destroy it!" Yun Shao shouted in exasperation. At this moment, the hall shook and Nangong Yun ran back in a very distressed manner. His body had been smashed by the hammer 4-5 times and there were many black dents on his body that were still smoking. "Are you done yet? I can't hold on any longer. This is bad. When it rains, it pours." Chapter 179. This giant craftsman covered in flames was several times stronger than normal craftsmen, almost reaching the true soul realm. Moreover, he had a cultivation technique and a special martial art, so his battle strength could not be compared to before. "You help Nangong Yun, I'll take care of the leader." The situation was very dangerous and they did not have time to waste. They immediately controlled the puppets to help Nangong Yun and block the other giant craftsmen. How could the burning giant let them go? As soon as they controlled the puppets to retreat, the giant charged forward with a loud roar. Chu Tian hid behind a pillar. The mind's lamp was lit and his divine sense was released. It was like an invisible but penetrating light. When one's divine sense reached the mind's lamp realm, not only did it have the ability to observe, it also had the ability to affect matter. The burning giant was covered by the mind's lamp, as if there was some kind of external force that had stopped him. The puppet took a step forward and charged forward. The burning giant was awakened and the war hammer quickly spun. It was covered in flames and it suddenly shot out like a bolt of red lightning. Chu Tian saw through the giant's attack and had the giant puppet dodge ahead of time. The giant hammer missed and slammed into its back, creating a long mark on the ground. The terrifying heat created a long ditch that was filled with molten rock. The puppet took the opportunity to leap up and launch an attack. The collision of the two incomparably large fellows was truly like a collision between two mountains. The giant was caught off guard and was pushed back 2 steps. The puppet's fists were like cannonballs as it fiercely hammered the giant's chest. When the 2 dark golden fists hit the burning giant's chest, the annihilation runes on the puppet's arms lit up and released a terrifying destructive might. The giant's chest caved in and the 30-meter-tall giant body was hit by a powerful shockwave, slamming into a pillar. The pillar collapsed with a loud rumble. This was a good chance for the puppet to chase, but the giant burning hammer spun in the air and slashed at Chu Tian's back. The mind's lamp's divine sense was stronger than the mind's eye. Although the mind's lamp was not as sharp as the mind's eye, its ability to control a large area far surpassed the mind's eye. Chu Tian felt the giant hammer fly back, but the body of the puppet was not his, after all, so it could not use the power of the microscopic to the extreme, nor could it wield the hammer freely like his own body. Chu Tian could only barely dodge to the side, and the giant hammer brushed past his shoulder, leaving behind a burn mark. The burning giant took the opportunity to stand up and catch the hammer with a bang. The hammer returned to his hand. The moment the hammer returned to its hand, its aura instantly increased by several times. That pair of eyes spewed out flames of anger as it charged forward with earth-shattering steps, smashing the puppet's head with its hammer. Chu Tian knew the power of this giant. If this hammer hit, the puppet giant would be completely crippled. Under Chu Tian's control, the puppet immediately retreated to avoid the heavy blow. The giant hammer swung down heavily from its chest, unexpectedly erupted with a scorching power that ignited the air. Like a fire dragon descending from the sky, it crashed headfirst into the sturdy floor. The puppet's legs turned soft and its body fell into the air. It fell into a large pool of burning red magma. The pure power of the giant's hammer wasn't much, but it could produce a terrifying energy wave that instantly melted a large area of the ground into liquid. It was a good thing the puppet was made of high-density metal. If it was a normal being with a flesh and blood body, even if it was a true soul realm expert, if they fell into a pool of several thousand degrees hot magma, they would instantly die. The puppet quickly flipped back and escaped from the pool of magma. Although it was made of high-density metal, staying in the magma for a long time would cause a large amount of damage to the puppet's body. If an important part of the puppet melted, the entire puppet would be crippled. The burning giant raised its hammer again and attacked Chu Tian's puppet again. Wherever the sledgehammer passed, the air was set ablaze. It was as if a giant was holding a flaming dragon in his hand and was crazily smashing it at a puppet giant. It hit the ground. It instantly created a large pool of magma. It hit the giant pillar. It instantly melted the giant pillar. Chu Tian, who was far away, could also feel the terrifying and scorching aura. If Chu Tian hadn't been using his divine sense to monitor the overall situation, using his well-practiced technique and minute subtlety to carefully control the puppet, he would have been defeated in just a few rounds. The burning giant swung its hammer once again, turning the ground into a large pool of magma. Enough! Chu Tian controlled the puppet to not retreat, but rather charge forward. It suddenly stepped on the giant's hammer, not letting the giant raise the hammer. The annihilation iron fist slammed into the giant's right shoulder. The giant's shoulder was shattered. Chu Tian controlled the puppet to raise its arm and then sent out a chop. With a terrifying cracking sound, the giant's right arm was cut off. He raised his leg and kicked out. The giant was sent flying again. "How are you going to fight me without your hammer?" Chu Tian controlled the puppet to pick up the severed arm and throw it far away. Stepping on the magma, he charged out of the pit and chased after the giant with a terrifying strength. The giant did not even have time to stand up before the puppet grabbed him and lifted him up, smashing him into another pillar. Having lost its right arm, it had lost its hammer. The giant's battle strength had plummeted. How could it still be Chu Tian's match in this situation? The burning giant roared 3 times. Its body was covered in flames and countless destructive runes were released from its body. Self-destruction? Chu Tian's divine sense was constantly checking the situation inside the giant's body. The giant was condensing its energy into a single point and adding in the runes that appeared. The giant knew that it could not win, so it chose to destroy itself. Chu Tian quickly controlled the puppet to turn around and pick up a broken pillar. It was like a giant stick that weighed several dozen tons. The mind's lamp was suddenly released. His divine sense covered everyone. A voice sounded in everyone's mind at the same time, "Get out of the way. This fellow is going to explode." The cracks on the burning giant's body became more and more serious. Large amounts of magma and flames began to spew out, almost ready to explode. "Fuck you." Chu Tian used the pillar as a stick to hit the giant's body. The 30-meter-tall giant was violently attacked and was like a ball being hit by a wooden stick as it flew towards a group of giant craftsmen. Nangong Yun controlled the puppet to kick the giant in the air. "Let me help you." This kick landed on the giant's abdomen and the giant was sent flying again, falling in the middle of the group of giant craftsmen. "Quickly run." Everyone threw themselves to the side and lay down. A destructive energy filled the hall and a sea of flames covered most of the hall. At least 30 giant craftsmen were blown to pieces. Killed the raging flame divine craftsman. You have been awarded 30 trial points. Killed the giant craftsman. You have been awarded 4 trial points. Killed the giant craftsman. You have been awarded 4 trial points. Chu Tian found that his trial points were slowly increasing and he had instantly obtained over 100 points. A giant craftsman should have been awarded 5 trial points, but because of Nangong Yun's kick, the trial tower had determined that Nangong Yun had contributed in killing the giants, so she was given 1 trial point to each giant craftsman. "This is great." Yun Xiao let out a loud cry. They had instantly killed most of the giants. Was there anything more satisfying than this? The entire craftsman palace, a divine craftsman giant and over 100 giant craftsmen, had actually been completely destroyed by 7 people. In terms of battle strength, the puppet was not much stronger than the giants, but it was still able to achieve this kind of glorious victory. This was not an easy matter at all. Clear out the craftsman palace. You have been awarded 30 trial points. Everyone received a reward at the same time. This was the extra trial points for killing the giants. Because of the trial tower's design, completely destroying the craftsman palace was an impossible task. If someone could actually complete this task, naturally they would receive extra trial points. Chu Tian had solved the cube puzzle at the beginning and obtained over 100 points, completing this impossible task. That was why the 7 of them had enough capital to activate all these giant puppets. It was because there were so many giant puppets and because they had set their goal from the beginning that they did not go to the other treasure halls and directly headed to the main hall. That was why they were able to reach the craftsman palace in the shortest amount of time. The giant craftsmen had not been strengthened enough. Otherwise, even if they had 7 giant puppets, they would not have been able to pass through here, not to mention clearing out the entire craftsman palace. There was no doubt about it. This was a glorious victory. Chu Tian looked at his trial points and found that he had over 284 points. This was almost enough to break the Central State City record. Even if Chu Tian was eliminated by the trial tower, he would still be the person with the highest trial points in history. Less than 8 hours had passed in the trial. Chu Tian stood up with a face covered in dust. The flames in the main hall gradually dissipated and the hot air seemed to be able to burn one's lungs. The battle had reached its peak. "Is everyone all right?" Nangong Yun stood up and her beautiful red hair stood up. Her beautiful face was also covered in black. Feng Kaidai, who paid attention to her image, also looked like a coal worker. "We're still alive." Yun Xiao, Lin Mu, and Feng Han were together. Feng Han had condensed an ice wall that blocked the shockwave from the flames. Yun Yao did not need to worry at all. Her cultivation base was much higher than Chu Tian's, so the shockwave from the explosion was not enough to threaten her life. "Although we're fine, but..." Yun Yao knit her brows and said, our puppets have suffered quite a bit of damage and their battle strength has dropped. We haven't even reached the treasure room, so this loss is a bit big. The 7 puppets had suffered different degrees of damage, but their luck was not bad. At least no matter how heavy the damage was, they could still move and would not completely collapse. Who cares? Nangong Yun impatiently said, quickly take a look. What spoils of war are there? Yun Shao also said, that's right. These giants are so strong, they should have left behind some spoils of war. Chu Tian walked over to the place where the divine craftsman had exploded. Chu Tian seemed to have discovered something and his eyes lit up. This fellow was hard to deal with, but he still left behind quite a few things. Chapter 180. Even a true soul realm expert could not block the might of the raging flame divine craftsman. This could be seen from the trial space's rewards. Killing a strong queen insect gave 20 trial points and killing a raging flame divine craftsman gave 30 trial points, so the raging flame divine craftsman was much stronger than the queen insect. The queen insect had dropped a spiritual treasure bead that could not be sought, so there was no reason for the raging flame divine craftsman to not drop anything. A purple key, a giant hammer with a long handle, a scarlet red jade slip, a scarlet red magic bead. These were all the spoils of war left behind by the raging inferno divine craftsman. The purple gold key seemed to be used to open the treasure chest. The scarlet jade slip was a secret manual that recorded some kind of absolute art, and the magic bead and the giant hammer were both powerful equipment. Chu Tian picked up the 2-meter-long giant hammer and felt it sink in his hand, making it hard for him to hold it. Such a heavy weapon. If he didn't use his spirit energy, it would be hard to use it. This weapon could only be used by those with great strength. The Jade Trial token sent a message to his head. Chu Tian nodded his head in satisfaction. Magma Hammer, this is a top-grade soul weapon. This hammer was not weaker than Shunfengho's Divine Wind Sword. Chu Tian picked up the scarlet red magic bead. Flame-avoiding bead, this is a special defensive item. It can absorb all kinds of flames and store them, allowing the wearer to not be harmed by flames. This was a strange treasure. Its value was not inferior to the magma hammer. This cultivation technique is called Strength of Magma. It seems like the Raging Flame Divine Craftsman's high-temperature technique. Chu Tian looked over the cultivation technique on the jade slip and then gave the jade slip and hammer to Nangong Yun. These 2 things are suitable for you. Take them and use them. He really was worthy of being the leader, giving out this many rewards. Nangong Yun raised the 2-meter-long hammer. The shape of the hammer was cylindrical, and it was thicker than a person's waist. It was dark red in color, and it was made of metal. It was covered with bright runes, and it looked like lava was flowing on top of it. It was slowly spewing out a powerful energy. Everyone was shocked. This weapon was worth at least tens of millions of gold coins. Yun Shao couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Big Sister was originally a very violent person, and now that she was holding this exaggerated giant hammer as a weapon, it was very fitting, but it was a bit too scary. Nangong Yun raised the heavy giant hammer and lightly waved it a few times. A strong gust of wind blew up, causing the others to not dare to come close. She laughed loudly and said, "It's enough. It was easy to use. I like it very much." Thump. The giant hammer smashed into the ground. The explosion of fiery red essence energy caused the ground within 3 meters to shatter into pieces. Everyone was caught off guard and their legs shook, almost causing them to tumble. Strong and fierce. Nangong Yun didn't mind the exaggerated shape of the hammer at all. She gently kicked the handle of the hammer with her leg, pulling it up from the ground and carrying it on her shoulder. "Thank you, boss. I finally have a weapon that fits me." Yun Yao secretly said to Yun Shao with a serious expression, "Stay away from her in the future. Do you hear me?" Yun Shao wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. "I understand. I still want to live for a few more years." The strength of magma does not conflict with your family's cultivation technique, so I believe that you can cultivate them together. I believe that with this cultivation technique and this giant hammer, your battle strength will at least double. The weapon and cultivation technique did not suit Chu Tian, so he gave it to Nangong Yun. This could be considered making the best use of it. He had a use for the flame-avoiding bead. As for the remaining purple gold key, what use did it have? Everyone continued to search through the main hall, finding 6-7 silver keys and even a golden key. They all came from ordinary giants. The highest level treasure chest in the trial space was the gold treasure chest. Then what use did the purple gold key have? You guys take the gold and silver keys to find the treasure chests. Chu Tian shook the purple gold key. I want to see what use this purple gold key has. The craftsman palace did not lack large amounts of gold and silver treasure chests. Because time was precious and they could not waste it, Nangong Yun immediately took the key and excitedly went to find the treasure chests. Chu Tian carefully studied the purple gold key dropped by the Raging Flame's divine craftsman. This should be a key with a special function. Chu Tian looked around the main hall and a giant copper furnace appeared in front of him. The Raging Flame's divine craftsman came from behind this furnace. Chu Tian walked to the back of the giant furnace and within the raging flames of the furnace, he found a glowing treasure chest. Moreover, it was purple gold in color. He found it this easily? This was a little unexpected. A new problem had arisen. The purple gold treasure chest was inside the giant's furnace and this furnace could even melt fine iron. If Chu Tian's flesh and blood body entered it, wouldn't he be instantly burnt to a crisp? The flame-avoiding bead did not mean that it was immune to flames. There was a limit to the amount of flame energy it could absorb. The energy inside the furnace was very strong and even true soul realm experts could not withstand it. If Chu Tian entered it, he would definitely die. Since it's a furnace used for forging, I should be able to control the flames. Chu Tian quickly found that on the walls of the furnace, there was a large secret array. It was made up of a total of 64 arrays and a few of them could be controlled. Metal, fire, water, earth, and wind? Furnace arrays had distinct attributes. Under the combination of different attributes, the design of the furnace would change. In the process of refining different materials and weapons in the ancient times, it was through this method that the best furnace smelting plan was produced. First reduce the fire element and then increase the wind element. The inside of the cauldron exploded with a boom, and the raging flames almost spewed out. The fire element decreased and the wind element increased. Although the temperature dropped, the wind made the flames burn even more fiercely. Streams of flames flowed through the furnace like dragons. Understood. The 64 squares represented the 64 elemental arrays inside the furnace. A portion of them were fixed and could not be changed. Chu Tian needed to change the other arrays and find the best way to reduce the furnace's flames. It did not mean that the furnace would be safer if the fire element was reduced. Sometimes it would be even worse. This was like how Chu Tian had just changed a fire element array to a wind element array, making the furnace's flames even stronger. But this was not too difficult. Chu Tian even understood the principle of the elements suppressing each other. When he grasped the source energy arrays inside the furnace, Chu Tian quickly adjusted the furnace's design, suppressing and restraining each other. The temperature inside the furnace quickly dropped and it gradually reached a balanced state. This should be fine. The furnace was still filled with flames, making it hard for people to see what was inside. The temperature inside had already decreased by a large amount. Chu Tian took the flame-avoiding bead and walked into the sea of flames. A protective layer appeared around his body. Once the flames approached his body, they would be absorbed by the flame-avoiding bead. Chu Tian walked through the countless flames, but he did not feel any unbearable heat. However, he understood in his heart that the flame-avoiding bead could only absorb a limited amount of fire element and he could not stay in this place for long. Gotcha! The purple gold treasure chest was opened. Chu Tian didn't even look at them as he put them away. Then he quickly left the furnace. He was completely unscathed, not even a single strand of hair was burnt. A strange square-shaped crystal. According to the Jade Trial Token, this thing was called the Treasure Room Key. A special talisman made of jade. According to the Jade Trial Token, this talisman was called the Substitute Talisman. As the name implied, it could be used to create a substitute to avoid fatal attacks. It was a special item used in the trial space and could not be taken outside. It was an ancient refining technique jade slip. According to the Jade Trial Token, this was a book that recorded a large number of ancient refining techniques. It was a priceless treasure in this era. The other two were fine. What made Chu Tian very curious was the treasure room key. Did he need this strange key to open the treasure room? But how could he use it? Nangong Yun and the others had already returned. Everyone had a large harvest. Since this hall was a place for forging weapons, there were no medicinal herbs or special tools found in the treasure chests. Most of the chests were weapons, armors, equipment, and even materials. Most of them were high-grade soul tools, and the total number of loot was more than a dozen. Dozens of high-quality soul armaments. This was definitely not a small amount. There were not many refiners in Central State City that could refine soul equipment. The four great families did not have many high-quality soul equipment. The harvest this time was very satisfying. Everyone had already spent several dozen minutes in the Craftsman Palace. They immediately packed up their spoils and began to head towards the center of the Giant's Labyrinth, the Giant's Treasure Room. There was a long distance from the Craftsman Palace to the Giant's Treasure Room. On the way there, they had encountered many strong giant guards. Fighting them was not a good idea, so Chu Tian chose not to fight and charged forward as fast as he could. Finally, everyone used 3 hours to reach the center of the Giant's Labyrinth, which was the Giant's Treasure Room on the map. But when they arrived at the Giant's Treasure Room, everyone was in a daze. The scene of the treasure room was too different from what they had imagined. From a normal person's point of view, the treasure room should be a magnificent palace. The Giant's Treasure Room was the center of the trial space, so it should be called a wonder. But what appeared in front of them was an empty palace. Just from the area, this palace was much smaller than the Craftsman Palace. The most important thing was that there was nothing here. Other than giant mirrors, they were scattered around in a disorderly manner. Floor, walls, and ceiling. Huge mirrors were installed in various places. The mirrors were 3 meters tall and had a golden base that could be turned. The mirror surface was smooth and without a speck of dust. Each mirror was surrounded by some kind of energy that released an ancient aura. On the back of the crystal mirrors, there were mysterious patterns. It was a ferocious-looking monster with the head of a wolf and the body of a human. It wore scaled armor and held a large trident in its hand. Its blood-red eyes stared at the intruders, as if warning them not to come closer. Other than that, there was nothing else. There wasn't even a single treasure chest. What was going on? What happened to the treasure room? This was clearly a normal palace. How did it look like the core of the trial space? How did it look like a hidden 10,000-year-old mystery? Chapter 181. The main palace was completely empty and filled with a strange, deathly silent atmosphere. It was completely made of black metal, giving off a dark feeling like a mausoleum. The strangest thing was that there were layers of mirrors in all directions and there were many of them. The mirrors reflected each other and overlapped with each other, extending endlessly. When a person stood in the center, they could see countless mirrors reflecting each other. It seemed like there was no end to them, as if one person had turned into tens of thousands of people. These several 100-meter-wide mirrors were arranged in a certain pattern, making it hard to find the exit once one entered and making it very easy to lose one's sense of direction. The large hammer slammed into the ground with a dong sound. This is the treasure room? This is the treasure room? Pay! Every single hair. Nangong Yun angrily said, "We must have been tricked by the map. Perhaps we were tricked by the trial tower's creator." The others also had the same feeling. They had found a large amount of half-step sacred level 10,000-year spiritual honey, and the craftsman's palace had obtained a large amount of high-quality soul weapons. Everyone had worked hard to reach the center of the labyrinth, but in the end, there was nothing. There were no monsters guarding and no treasure chests appearing. How could this be justified? This was too outrageous. The map can't be wrong and the trial space's designer wouldn't be this bored. Chu Tian did not think this way. He could already feel that this arrangement was not normal. There was no reason for all these crystal mirrors to be placed here, but even he could not figure it out. Let's look around, there must be something special about it. I found it. This mirror is a bit different. Yun Xiao found a mirror that was no different from a normal mirror, but the frame was purple gold. It was unknown what material was used to make it, but it was very exquisite. It released a faint glow and there was no demonic totem on the back of the mirror. Feng Kaidai curiously touched the purple gold mirror and found a recess on the back of the mirror. The recess was square and it seemed like something could be placed in it. Everyone thought of the treasure room key at the same time. Chu Tian took out the square crystal stone from the purple gold treasure chest and compared it to it. The size was just right, so he pushed it in without thinking about it. When the crystal stone entered the recess, it instantly merged with the ancient mirror, as if it had always been in the mirror. The ancient mirror shook a few times and was filled with energy. The patterns on the surface of the purple gold frame lit up one by one. The smooth, spotless surface of the mirror suddenly condensed some kind of powerful energy wave, as if it was about to melt, and a large number of ripples appeared. Bang! There was a muffled sound. Everyone felt that they could barely open their eyes because a beam of intense light, like a beam of light cannon, shot out from the mirror and hit a pillar in the distance. A huge hole appeared on the pillar. After the beam of light pierced through the pillar, it traversed the entire hall and landed on the metal walls of the corridor. Even though it was 6 or 7 miles away, the high-energy beam of light quickly melted the walls. A large amount of boiling red liquid flowed down the walls. Nangong Yun was tongue-tied, such strong energy. The crystal's function was to provide energy to the mirror, allowing the mirror to produce a high-energy light beam. In other words, the real key to the treasury was not the crystal, but the mirror, or more accurately, the light beam? This beam of light is so strong that it can melt a wall made of golden books. Feng Kaidai said, "Could the door to the treasury be on the wall and we need to use the mirror beam to melt the metal to get in?" Impossible. When Chu Tian entered the giant's labyrinth, he had already experienced it. This trial not only tested one's strength and luck, but it also tested one's knowledge and skills. For example, the cube lock at the beginning, or the secret door to the puppet room. He believed that in the entire palace, there were many similar places. The giant's treasury was the core area of the trial, so it should be the hardest to crack. No one had even managed to crack it in 10,000 years. How could it be as simple as melting a wall with an extremely powerful light mirror? When Chu Tian was observing the terrain and thinking, a sharp cry suddenly rang out beside his ear. The mirrors around us are all smoking. The mirrors in all directions were emitting waves of black demonic mist. The wolf-headed, human-bodied demon totems behind the mirrors seemed to have been stimulated by something. They all came to life and crawled out of the mirrors one by one. Shrill, ghost-like howls suddenly filled the entire space. What the hell? The totems have all turned into demons. Monsters came out of the mirrors one by one. They had the head of a wolf and the body of a human. They had a cold expression, a lizard's tail, and bat-like wings. It was a strange-looking beast. Yun Xiao shouted, "There seems to be a lot of them, what do we do?" Chu Tian ordered, "Nonsense. What can we do? Fight." The fiendish demon was about 3 meters tall. Demonic chi surged into the sky, and its baleful aura was overwhelming. When it completely appeared, its physical body immediately disintegrated in the air, releasing a large clump of black mist that quickly approached the group. Everyone controlled the puppets to charge forward. The iron fist, which was flashing with annihilation runes, struck a cloud of black mist, and the black mist was instantly dispersed. Did they kill one? It wasn't that simple. The scattered black mist gathered together and appeared on the giant puppet's chest. It turned into a giant trident that pierced through the giant puppet's chest and came out from its back. The giant puppet was nailed to the ground. The giant puppet was invulnerable, and even an illustrious soul realm cultivator would find it hard to damage it. This kind of demon had easily pierced through the puppet's body, just like piercing through paper. Feng Katie's face turned pale. "My puppet can't move." Lin Mu, Feng Han, and Yun Xiao wanted to help, but it was useless. After these demons turned into black mist, their bodies were completely vaporized. No matter how strong the attacks hit them, they would just pass through their bodies. 7-8 monsters charged forward. The entire giant puppet had been torn to pieces. In another direction, the demon turned into a bow and shot out an arrow. This arrow did not make a sound at all, and Yun Xiao did not know how the arrow pierced through his body. The trial taker's jade tablet emitted a white light. Yun Xiao disappeared from the trial space. Yun Xiao had been eliminated. Everyone's expressions changed. This was the first time someone had been eliminated. Chu Tian said to the little fox, "They look like demons. Do you have a way to restrain them?" The little fox shook its head and gestured a few times with its claws. Although they were demons, the little fox could feel that they were very special. It was as if they were protected by some kind of power, and in this state, they were immortal. No matter how strong the attack was, it would not affect them at all. Chu Tian knit his brows. How could there be invincible monsters in the trial space? This doesn't make sense. The little fox rolled its eyes, indicating that it didn't know either. This is bad. We can't stop them. Several dozen monsters charged forward, and Lin Mu's and Fong Han's puppets were destroyed. The two of them were also attacked by the monsters and were instantly eliminated from the trial space. Too fast. Not only were the demons immortal, their battle strength was very strong and they were very fast. Before anyone could react, they had already been surrounded from all sides. Nangong Yun's face turned white seeing this. "We're done for." Before her voice even fell, a large group of demons gathered together and rushed over like a black whirlwind. What should they do? Physical attacks and elemental attacks were all useless. "I've got it." At this critical moment, Chu Tian suddenly had an idea. Quickly, use the light mirror to shine on it. Nangong Yun, Feng Kaidai, and Yun Yao were suddenly enlightened. That's right. It's the light mirror. Feng Kaidai was the closest to the light mirror. She rushed over, hugged the light mirror, and aimed it at a cloud of black mist. The instant the light shone on the demons, they let out shrill cries. The black mist quickly retracted, and they returned to their wolf-headed, human-bodied forms. All the transformations disappeared. Cracks appeared on the demons' bodies as they used their hands to block the light mirror. The little fox's eyes lit up and it immediately jumped up. It forcefully sucked in a breath at the demons, and the energy in the demons' bodies was like a wild horse, being sucked into the little fox's body. Like several dozen stone statues, they were all shattered. Nangong Yun swung her hammer and smashed it heavily on a demonic beast that had escaped the net. As expected, she successfully hit the monster and sent it flying, shattering it into pieces on the spot. Good success. The trick was on the mirror. An entire group of demons had been eliminated and no one had time to be happy. After the light passed through the monster, it landed on the mirror in front of it. It was reflected back and landed on the mirror behind it. The light was reflected 5-6 times. Feng Kaidai gave a shocked cry. She was instantly hit by the light and was sent out of the trial space. Nangong Yun loudly cursed, "Fuck? What is she doing?" She reflected the light back onto her body and killed herself. All of this happened in an instant. Feng Kaidai did not even know what happened before she was killed. Yun Yao said in a serious voice, "There are mirrors all around and the light has been reflected, so no one can predict where it is going. It is very dangerous to use the light mirror." The light released by the main mirror was reflected by several mirrors, forming a dense net of light. These light beams were very strong, and if they were touched even a little bit, they would be instantly killed. The mirrors in the main hall began to tremble. There were over 100 demons coming out. Nangong Yun was not confident in her heart. She steeled her heart and prepared to die. "I'll control the mirrors, you guys hurry up. Kill them all." The main mirror's position was very dangerous. Nangong Yun only hoped that before she was killed, she could kill this group of monsters. "Nangong, come back, there's no need for you to take the risk." Chu Tian stopped Nangong Yun's reckless actions. Since he had figured out the rules, Chu Tian had a way to deal with it. "Let me do it." Mind's lamp ignite. Divine sense release. Chu Tian instantly locked onto the positions of the demons. He used his divine sense to lock onto the primary mirror from afar. He controlled the primary mirror to turn, and a powerful beam of light shone on nearly 100 demons, instantly dispelling their protective powers. Little fellow, it's up to you. The little fox teleported to the side a few times and quickly sucked in a large amount of energy from the demons. These spirit form demons, once they lost their protective power, they immediately became very weak. Their energy was instantly sucked dry and they were shattered by the light mirror. You have killed a mirror demon. You have been awarded 3 trial points. You have killed a mirror demon. You have been awarded 3 trial points. You have killed a mirror demon. You have been awarded 3 trial points. The number on Chu Tian's jade token kept flashing and he instantly obtained 300 trial points. Nangong Yun shouted in a pleasantly surprised voice, "Beautifully done." Yun Yao found that most of the demons had left the mirror and gathered together. She immediately warned Chu Tian, "Be careful, there are still many of them." Around 200 demons had gathered together. From 200 of them, they had gathered into a giant figure. Nangong Yun laughed. "These idiots, don't they know that the bigger the body, the bigger the target? Boss, quickly kill it." As the light shined on it, the giant demon released large amounts of blue smoke. It was like it had been burned by a piece of iron. Although it cried out in pain, it did not return to its original form like before. It was still protected by the mysterious energy and was in an immortal state. What's going on? Yun Yao was stunned. Could it be that the light mirror has lost its effect? Chu Tian said with knit brows, "It's not that the light mirror has lost its effect. It's that the demons have gathered together and condensed enough energy to resist the light mirror." Nangong Yun opened her mouth. "This is also fine? Then how should we fight it?" The newborn giant demon faced the sky and roared angrily. Countless black tentacle-like energy arms stretched out from its body. There were hundreds of them, making it look like a giant octopus. A terrifying pressure filled the air. It had already surpassed the awakened soul realm and reached an even higher realm. Even if this monster did not have an immortal state, it was not something Chu Tian and the others could defeat. Not to mention that the light mirror had no effect on it. Chapter 182. The demons were already hard to deal with. Now that they had fused together, they had become even stronger. Even the light mirrors had lost their effect on it. How should they fight this? The countless tentacle-like energy arms of the demons began to extend wildly in all directions. The sweeping power completely spread out in the main hall. A terrifying energy began to gather on the monster's body. This is bad. It seems like it's going to use its finishing move. Chu Tian was as calm as ice as he knit his brows in thought. This monster already had an overwhelming strength. It was hard for an awakened soul cultivator to defeat it. Now that it had an undying strength, any attack had no effect on it. Even the light beams could not force it back to its original form. This monster could not be defeated. But this did not make sense. The trial space would not have problems that could not be solved. It was just that they had not found the right method to solve it. Chu Tian released his divine sense and scanned the mirrors. His heart suddenly skipped a beat, as if he had understood something. He waved his right hand. The main mirror turned several degrees. But the beam of light fell on the normal mirror in front of him. After being reflected, it shot out 90 degrees, hitting the demon's body. A large amount of blue smoke came out and the giant demon screamed as it retreated a few steps. "I already understand." Chu Tian could clearly see through it. He could see the mystery behind it. The beam of light shot out by the main mirror is the weakest. Every time it is reflected, its strength will increase. If it can be reflected by the other mirrors, the final strength will be enough to make it return to its original form. Nangong Yun and Yun Yao were tongue-tied. This was too difficult. The mirrors were randomly distributed. If it was just a single reflection, it could be done, but how could he control the reflection and make it hit the giant demon's body after several reflections? Chu Tian released his divine sense, covering the surrounding ancient mirrors. "Help me by a bit of time." "Alright." Yun Yao and Nangong Yun controlled the puppets and began to run around, attracting the demon's attention. Chu Tian used his divine sense to control the copper mirrors. He was glad that the demon's body was large, so he did not need to be too precise. As long as the reflection angle was just right, it was enough. The dozens of ancient mirrors slowly changed their angles. The beam of light shot out from the main mirror and landed on the first ancient mirror. It was reflected on the second ancient mirror, and then the third ancient mirror. After repeating this process for about 10 times, the light finally became several times more dazzling. Like a high-energy laser beam, it fiercely landed on the demon's chest. The demon shrieked miserably. The black mist around its body evaporated quickly, and it was about to return to its original form. "There's hope," Chu Tian laughed. "Let's go. Kill him." The little fox forcefully sucked in, swallowing a small half of the spirit body demon's body. Nangong Yun and Yun Yao controlled their puppets to charge forward, sending out their divine annihilation fists, shattering the spirit demon's body. No matter how ferocious the monster was, it was now suppressed by the powerful light and surrounded by a few people. Clearly, it was unable to defend itself. With a miserable cry, it completely broke apart. "You have killed the guardian of the mirror. You have received 60 trial points." Chu Tian alone obtained 60 trial points. The little fox, Nangong Yun, and Yun Yao had also participated in the battle, so they should have received quite a few trial points. The rewards alone were enough to show just how strong this monster was. There were only a few scattered demons left in the main hall. Light beam, Nangong Yun quickly shouted, "Illuminate them to death." Chu Tian turned the light mirror and the light beam swept across. The demons were forced back to their original forms and the little fox made a move, killing them all. Yun Yao and Nangong Yun let out a long sigh. They simply could not believe what had just happened. They could not believe that they could survive in the hands of such a terrifying monster. This was all thanks to Chu Tian. If it wasn't for Chu Tian's strong judgment and insight, not to mention the giant demon that was formed, even a normal primitive demon would have been enough to destroy an entire team. Chu Tian was too strong. Was he still human? Perhaps there was nothing in this world that could stop him. Nangong Yun's worship of Chu Tian had already reached its peak. Even the arrogant Yun Yao could not help but admire this young man. The two of them were prepared to say a few words, but who would have thought that before they could say anything? At this moment, a sharp whistling sound came from the corridor. Several golden treasured swords suddenly shot out and landed on the mirrors around Chu Tian, changing the direction of the mirrors. The angles of these mirrors had been personally changed by Chu Tian, allowing Chu Tian to control the direction of the light beam. Now that they had been messed up, it was clear that someone wanted to restrict Chu Tian's attack power. "You really are lucky." From the end of the main hall, a cold laugh came. "You actually found such a powerful mechanical puppet that can even defeat the demons in the main hall. But it's a good thing you came here early, otherwise we might not have been able to deal with these troublesome monsters." "This is bad." Chu Xinghe's group. Because of Chu Tian, Chu Xinghe's group of 3 had formed a temporary alliance. The 3 of them were already very strong, especially Chu Xinghe. He was close to the 5th awakened soul layer and had a very deep cultivation base. Even against a strong existence like the giant guard, he still had the ability to fight it. Now with Luo Xianglong and Yi Tianlong's help, the slaves were not a threat no matter how many of them there were. The 3 of them could easily kill a large group of them, and even against a terrifying monster like the giant guard, they still had the ability to protect themselves. It was because of this. The 3 of them smoothly arrived here. When they saw Chu Tian's group controlling the light mirrors and puppets, fighting against the main hall, they were all shocked by Chu Tian's godly skills. Even Chu Xinghe could not do this. After all, not only did it require strength, it also tested one's intelligence. Yi Tianlang and Luo Xianglong wanted to sneak attack Chu Tian, but they were stopped by Chu Xinghe. The 3 of them had been watching from the side, waiting for this situation where both sides were heavily injured. But it was time to come out and reap the benefits. Nangong Yun angrily shouted, "I was worried about not having a place to find you, but I never thought that you would come out to die. Since it's like this, then have a taste of this ant's strength." After saying this, she was going to control the damaged puppets to fight. Chu Tian knit his brows. "Nangong, wait." Chu Xinghe was not an idiot. On the contrary, he was very meticulous and calm. This kind of person was very hard to deal with. He had been watching from the side for a long time, so it was impossible for him to not know the puppet's battle strength. It was even more impossible for him to not understand the situation. If he wasn't 100% confident, with Chu Xinghe's personality, he would not have made a move. After this battle, Chu Tian's side had already suffered heavy losses. Even if there were a few puppets left, they would not be able to turn the situation around. The puppet's strength was close to a late awakened soul realm true soul expert, but it was heavily injured and could not display its might. Then again, the three of them were all experienced people, so why would they risk their lives against the puppet? They could just go around the puppet and kill Chu Tian's group. With their strength, they could definitely do this. Other than that, if Chu Tian could find the puppet in the giant's labyrinth, then it was impossible for Chu Xinghe's group to not have any fortuitous encounters. So, they did not have 100% confidence. The three of them would not come out. If they fought now, they would lose without a doubt. Yun Yao had clearly thought of this problem. She understood Chu Xinghe's strength better than Chu Tian and Nangong Yun. Even without Yi Tianlang and Luo Xianglong, this person alone was enough to pose a large threat to them. His inherited sword art was too strong. He would definitely be able to kill all three of them before they could control their puppets. Chu Tian's mind raced, and he immediately had an idea. Since you have the ability to come here, that means you also have a map. I think you should know that this is the core area of the giant's labyrinth. Most of the treasures in the entire training ground are buried here. So what? Luo Xianglong coldly laughed and said, "We'll first take care of you pieces of trash and then we'll search for the treasures." Chu Tian said with a taunting face, "The method to open the treasures is related to the mirror and the difficulty is very high. You guys can't even open a trifling cube block and you want to open the secret of the treasures? Isn't this just a pipe dream?" This was blatant contempt. The three young masters' hearts were filled with rage. However, what Chu Tian said was correct. If they couldn't even open a trifling cube block, how could they open the legendary hidden treasures? Bullshit. Yi Tianlang hated Chu Tian to the bone and his killing intense sword as he roared. So what if we can't obtain the treasures? Don't even think about stalling for time. I'll take your dog life right now. A golden treasure sword appeared in front of Yi Tianlang. Tianlang's face sunk. "Chu Xinghe, what are you doing?" Chu Xinghe ignored Yi Tianlang and coldly asked, "You can open the treasures?" "I don't know, but if there's one of us that can open the treasures, then other than me, who else has this ability? In terms of knowledge and knowledge, no one could compare to Chu Tian." Luo Xianglong and Yi Tianlang had an impatient look on their faces. They did not care about the bullshit treasures at all. Killing Chu Tian, crippling him, and sending him out of the trial was more worth it than the illusory treasures. Who knew if he was just speaking nonsense to stall for time? Chu Xinghe asked, "How long?" Chu Tian replied, "Around an hour is enough." Chu Xinghe, "Can't you see? This sly bastard is stalling for time." Yi Tianlang firmly opposed, "We can't fall for this. No one has been able to open the treasures since ancient times, so why do you believe he can? It's just a mob, what is there to be afraid of?" Chu Xinghe gently flicked his finger and the golden treasure sword floated around him. "My sword is enough to kill them at any time, so I'll just give them a bit of time." Chu Xinghe's confidence was not without reason. The puppets that Chu Tian relied on were not much stronger than the armored guards, not to mention that they were heavily injured and their defenses had dropped. Even if he were to fight with the three puppets, Chu Xinghe was confident he would not lose. Not to mention that Chu Xinghe's Imperial Dragon Transformation sword art was ever-changing, it was enough to kill the three of them. Not to mention the fact that the three puppets were not even at the True Soul Realm. Even if they were at the True Soul Realm or even surpassed the True Soul Realm, what use was there in killing them? Chapter 183. Chu Tian and Chu Xinghe both had their own plans. Chu Tian needed to fight for a bit of time. As long as he had time to prepare, he might be able to create a counterattack. Chu Xinghe's strength was an undeniable fact. Even when they were in the same realm, he had almost killed Chu Tian with a single slash. That was the first time since Chu Tian came to this era that he had been heavily injured by someone in the same realm. Chu Xinghe was already this strong even when suppressing his cultivation. His true cultivation was close to the fifth awakened soul layer. This was an overwhelming advantage. As the head of the 4 young masters, even if the other 3 young masters worked together, they would not be able to defeat him. The only chance was to control the light mirror's power. If he could control the light mirror, then with the powerful light beam's power, he might be able to fight against Chu Xinghe. Chu Xinghe was a calm person, so how could he not see through Chu Tian's intentions? But he was too confident. Chu Tian would not have a chance. Several flying swords floated above Chu Tian's head. If there was even the slightest movement, he would be instantly killed. There was no chance at all. Chu Xinghe was different from Luo Xianglong and Yi Tengling. He was an extreme martial artist. No matter how many grudges Chu Tian had with the Chu family, he could put them aside for now. Because compared to the family grudges, he was more interested in the hidden treasures of the trial space. If he could obtain the inheritance of the hidden treasures, he would have countless riches, resources, and cultivation techniques. Chu Xinghe's strength and influence would increase by another level. To a person like Chu Xinghe, family, friendship, and family glory were all nonsense. He would not hesitate to pay any price to become stronger. What he pursued was personal strength. Chu Tian was the only one who had the ability to open the hidden treasures. Chu Xinghe had to suppress his urge to cripple him. He ignored Yi Tianlang and Luo Xianglong's opposition and gave Chu Tian an hour to try. Nangong Yun and Yun Xiao looked at each other. The atmosphere at the scene was terrifyingly heavy. Chu Tian's mediation had bought some time for the 2 of them to survive, but what use was it? It was impossible for them to defeat the other party. Could it be that they really had to open the treasure and let them have it? If that was the case, he might as well commit suicide now and get out of here. Chu Tian, what the hell are you thinking? Chu Xinghe was already strong enough. If he could obtain the treasures of the Tower of Trials, who in the central state would be able to contend against him? Chu Tian turned a blind eye to the 2's hints and began to study the mirrors in the treasury. There were a total of more than 300 giant sperm mirrors. Although it looked messy and disorderly, it was actually distributed according to a certain pattern. Chu Tian believed that once he saw through these patterns, he would definitely be able to find a way to open the door to the treasury. What was the pattern? Light was the true key to the treasure vault. Chu Tian stood beside the main mirror and stared at the beam of light coming from the main mirror. After thinking about it for a few seconds, a light flashed in his mind. Could it be like this? Chu Tian lowered his head to look at the ground beneath him. There were many runes engraved on the floor of the main hall. These runes were very messy and there were many meaningless ancient runes and inscriptions mixed in, making it hard for people to find any meaningful information. However, Chu Tian could see it with a single glance. These runes seemed to be the elements of an array. Now that the source energy array's runes were on the ground, the use of the light mirror was clear. Light could be transmitted through the light mirror, forming an array diagram. The use of light was to complete an incomplete array. Chu Tian needed to adjust the angle of the light mirror and guide it to the correct state. After the light was refracted by the light mirror, it would form a perfect array diagram and runes. The array diagram and runes would combine to complete the array in the main hall. Using the mirror as a pen and the light as ink, this would form an inconceivable array. Light was the key to opening the door to the treasury. How to use it was a huge problem. Inconceivable, unimaginable. This method had never been heard of before. The designer of the trial space was not a simple person. This small trial field should have been used for young people to gain experience, so how could there be such a complex array? To be able to complete this kind of difficult array, one must have extraordinary attainments in the field of source energy arrays. It was almost impossible for a young person to do this. No wonder it was a 10,000-year-old problem. It was a bit challenging. I like it. Ever since Chu Tian came to this era, the problems he had encountered were too stupid. Now that he had finally encountered something that was a bit reasonable, how could he not be happy? But the more difficult it was, the higher the reward would be. Chu Tian opening the treasure vault was one thing, but obtaining the treasure was another. Chu Xinghe's group of 3 was eyeing him like a tiger watching its prey. If he couldn't obtain the treasure vault and instead gave it to these 3 wolves, then Chu Tian's loss would be too great. Then he would stake it all. Chu Tian felt the floating treasure sword and suddenly steeled his heart. With this large array, he had 30% confidence that he could kill them in one move. It all depended on who was faster. When Chu Tian adjusted the light mirrors and prepared to attack, suddenly, there was an explosion coming from the left and right side of the giant's treasure vault. There was a large group of monsters that were wildly charging over. Chu Tian knit his brows. Go block them. I can't be disturbed when I'm breaking the array. Chu Xinghe's lips curled into a cold smile. How could he not see through Chu Tian's intention? Now that Chu Tian was purposely sending them away, it was just to prepare for himself. No problem. Let him prepare. As long as I open the treasure vault, with this person's strength, how could he fight me? Now was not the time for internal strife. If the monster tide came in, both sides would be finished. Because there were 2 entrances to the treasure vault, Chu Xinghe's group of 3 guarded one while Nangong Yun's group guarded the other with their puppets. Both sides had a tacit understanding. What is Chu Tian thinking? Yun Yao's face was filled with confusion. Even if we can't obtain the treasure vault, we can't let them obtain it. Nangong Yun walked while frowning, then said, Boss definitely has his own plans. I understand him. He won't do anything that he doesn't have a bit of confidence in. That's because he doesn't understand. Yun Yao's face became serious. He must have greatly underestimated his opponent. Forget about Luo Xianglong and Yi Tanlang, but Chu Xinghe is definitely not someone he can fight against. Is Chu Xinghe really that strong? Let's put it this way, if I were to fight against him and Chu Xinghe goes all out, I would lose in 1 move and die in 3 moves. Nangong Yun's body trembled. Die in 3 moves? No matter what, Yun Yao was on the same level as Chu Xinghe and she had a soul-contracting weapon, the Thunder Spirit Bead, but she couldn't even block 1 move from Chu Xinghe? Just how strong was he? The battle on both sides of the corridor had already begun. Chu Tian focused all of his energy on it. There were over 300 mirrors placed around him and there were several dozen on the walls and even the ceiling. Most of the mirrors could rotate 360 degrees. Most of the mirrors could even tilt 90 degrees. Each mirror had to be perfectly positioned and the angle of each mirror had to be perfect. They also had to ensure that the beams of light were in the correct order, passing through each mirror at once. There could be no mistakes and no mistakes. It was so harsh that it made one's hair stand up. This was the only way to completely open the treasure vault. What kind of difficult matter was this? It wasn't something a human could do. Chu Tian did not have much time. He had to finish it in 1-2 hours. This meant that he had to finish it in 1 go. He couldn't even make a single mistake. 1 wrong step. That meant he had to start all over again. Did Chu Tian have the time to do this? Not to mention, if Chu Xinghe would give him the time, the monsters in the trial space would quickly flood this place. They would not give Chu Tian the time. There was no room for negotiation. Either he succeeded in 1 go, or he wasted all his previous efforts. When Chu Tian faced the complicated and profound arrangement of the mirrors, his heart filled with a surge of hot blood. He did not have the slightest bit of fear or waver, rather he felt a burst of excitement. There was no doubt about it. This was really a question that had been left unsolved for thousands of years. Although he did not know who buried it in the trial space, but from the ancient times until now, no one had been able to solve this problem. There must be some kind of heaven-shattering secret hidden in here. Don't disappoint me. Chu Tian lit his mind's lamp. His divine sense was like a ray of light, covering all directions, covering the several hundred mirrors. The position of each mirror, the arrangement, the angle, and every detail of the main hall, all of it was clearly displayed in Chu Tian's mind. This kind of large area without any blind spots was something that the mind's eye could not do. If Chu Tian had not obtained the mind's lamp's ability, he would not have been able to accurately control the mirrors and see through the mysteries of the main hall. However, The mind's lamp had his consciousness as the core and his spirit as the oil. Although the area it covered was very large, it consumed his divine sense very quickly. Although Chu Tian's divine sense had increased, he could not light the mind's lamp for a long time. Otherwise, if his divine sense continued to be consumed, it would cause irreparable damage to him. It's starting. Chu Tian used a quarter of an hour to observe the arrangement of the mirrors. The positions and angles of the 300 mirrors were all clear to him. At this time, Chu Tian released his divine sense. The little fox let out a few surprised cries. Several mirrors that were close began to move by themselves. It was as if there was an invisible hand that was moving them. The closest mirror had finished moving. The second row of mirrors began to be moved. The third row, the fourth row, the fifth row. Chu Tian used his divine sense to precisely control the light mirrors. He made the light mirrors go from messy and disorderly states to a certain order and angle, like a constellation that was tightly packed together. This process was not easy. Although Chu Tian's divine sense had reached the mind's lamp's level, it was still weak. This was a very challenging task for him. When the arrangement of the light mirror was halfway done, the light mirrors suddenly stopped. The mind's lamp was extinguished. Everything fell into darkness. Chu Tian found that his divine sense was not enough. When Chu Tian fell into a difficult situation, the little fox's gem-like eyes turned and it suddenly closed its eyes. A seal appeared on its forehead and an invisible energy suddenly appeared in Chu Tian's body. This energy is the little fox's divine sense? Chu Tian found it a bit hard to believe. This little fellow's divine sense isn't weak. Chu Tian did not know what method the little fellow had used to share its divine sense with Chu Tian, but this energy was something Chu Tian needed. The mind's lamp lit up again and his divine sense was released again, covering the main hall and adjusting the mirrors to the best angle. The large array was complete. Chu Tian revealed a faint smile and rubbed the little fox's head. "Many thanks." The little fox looked a bit tired, but it excitedly called out a few times, quickly opened the large array. This little fellow was also attracted. It was a bit impatient to see what kind of effect this never-before-seen array would have. Chu Tian nodded. "Don't be anxious. We'll begin now." Chu Tian walked to the purple gold-framed main mirror. Whether it would succeed or not depended on this one move. With a wave of his right hand, the main mirror slowly adjusted its angle. A dazzling beam of light shot out and landed on the mirror in front of him. It reflected the second mirror, the third mirror. How fast was the speed of light? The entire light mirror array, the entire giant's treasure house, was lit up in an instant. That sharp beam of light was like an array master's ink. Every time it reflected the light, the thickness, the angle, it was all accurate, reaching an unbelievably harsh level. Finally, a huge octagonal three-dimensional light formation suddenly descended on the ancient training field. The runes on the ground were filled with energy and floated into the air. Countless profound runes were attracted by a gravitational force and gathered at a single point, fusing together with the light. An ancient energy appeared in the main hall. It was like an ancient power that ruled over the world, but it was also an eternal power. It contained the laws of the world, making people tremble in awe. Chapter 184. The monsters that were swarming over felt a majestic power descend upon them. It was as if they had been intimidated by something and they all retreated like a tide. Why did the monsters all disappear? Did Chu Tian succeed? Let's go take a look. Nangong Yun and Yun Yao brought the two scarred puppets back to the main hall. With a single glance, they could see countless runes shooting towards the same spot like meteors. Like a spiderweb, they finally condensed into an incomparably large door of light. It was 20 feet tall, majestic. It was a magnificent sight. Open the door to the treasure room. You have been awarded 200 trial points. The moment Chu Tian broke the light mirror array and opened the door to the treasure room, the number on the jade token in front of his chest began to rise, increasing by an entire 200 points. This was the highest reward he had received since entering the trial space. This meant that the difficulty of opening the treasure room was at least 10 times that of solving the cube's secret. Chu Tian had really succeeded. This secret that had been hidden in the Central State Tower for countless years had finally been solved by Chu Tian's hands. The two of them had not even entered the main hall yet. Chu Tian did not let out a sigh of relief because the real trouble had just begun. "You guys quickly come in." Chu Tian saw Nangong Yun and Yun Yao come in and immediately waved his hand at them. Who would have thought that at this moment, 3 golden lights would suddenly appear in the main hall? "Be careful." Chu Tian's warning came too late. 3 golden treasured swords seemed to appear out of thin air and instantly shot at the 3 of them. Yun Yao and Nangong Yun were shocked by the giant door and could not react for a moment. They were pierced by the swords and disappeared in a white light. Chu Tian was also hit by the sword, but when the sword hit his body, a jade talisman on his body shattered and turned into an energy barrier that repelled the golden sword. Chu Tian revealed a serious expression. "Damn. This was really strange." Chu Xinghe did not return to the main hall and could still summon flying swords to attack. At that time, Nangong Yun and Yun Yao were not prepared, so they were directly killed. Chu Tian had only just completed the formation and had not had time to defend, so he was hit by the sword. Fortunately, he had a protective talisman that he had obtained from the maze, which was able to block the attack. Otherwise, Chu Tian would have been eliminated. "What, are you surprised?" Chu Xinghe's cold voice came from the sword floating in the air. "My sword is my heart. Although I left behind 3 swords. I can observe the situation in the main hall through these 3 swords. You can only blame yourselves for being too careless." Despicable indeed. However, one had to admit that he had some skills. Chu Tian was so focused on setting up the formation that he did not notice the few swords that Chu Xinghe had left in the hall. Who knew that these swords would become Chu Xinghe's eyes? Nangong Yun's cultivation was weak and could not help much, but the puppet's strength could not be underestimated. Yun Yao's cultivation was similar to Luo Xianglong and Yi Tianlong's, so she could have been a strong helper. Now, she had been killed by Chu Xinghe's sneak attack. This meant that Chu Tian had to face these 3 strong enemies alone. Ha ha ha! The heavens are helping me! At this time, Luo Xianglong walked back with a face of pleasant surprise. He excitedly laughed into the sky. There was a legend about the Tower of Trial in Central State City. The Tower of Trial hid a powerful inheritance that was enough for a person to spend for a lifetime. Whoever could solve the 10,000-year problem of the Tower of Trial would be able to obtain this inheritance. How many years had it been? Even if people found this problem, they could not solve it. Who would have thought that it would be solved by a little brat like Chu Tian today? How could Luo Xianglong not be happy? Yi Tianlong's eyes also revealed a strong greed. As long as he could obtain the ancient treasure hidden in the Tower of Trial, it would not be in vain for him to endure this humiliation for so long. Chu Xinghe was still as silent as ice. His hand formed a sword and the 3 swords returned to his side, entering his body. When he opened his eyes, a pair of sharp, pitch-black eyes hid a strong murderous intent. Actually, compared to Luo Xianglong and Yi Tianlong's joy, Chu Xinghe was more afraid, deeply afraid. Chu Xinghe had seen the entire process of Chu Tian's formation. This young man was too terrifying and his existence would become a threat sooner or later. His light could even overshadow Chu Xinghe. Chu Xinghe was insufferably arrogant. How could he tolerate the existence of a young man that was better than him? Even if he could not kill anyone in the secret realm, he could at least cripple them and ruin their future. I really don't know if I should say your luck is good or bad. Luo Xianglong recovered from his initial surprise and looked at Chu Tian with a taunting gaze. I actually have to thank the defensive jade talisman on you. If it wasn't for the fact that it blocked Chu Xinghe's attack, wouldn't it be too easy on you? You opened the door to the treasury for us, but now you have no value. Yi Tianlang coldly said, now let's settle our debts. Since it's like this, what's the point of saying so much? Chu Tian was not stupid enough to think that he could convince the 3 of them to share the treasure with him. His eyes flashed a few times and he calmly said, do you want to come one by one or do you want to come together? Even at death's door he still dared to be this arrogant? He was facing 3 of the Central State 4 young masters. Any one of them was a top-tier character in Central State, not to mention facing 3 of them at the same time. Since you have a big grudge, then leave it to Prince Tianlang to deal with? Many thanks. Yi Tianlang revealed a look of joy. He had waited for this chance for too long. Without another word, Yi Tianlang used his family's monster wolf transformation and turned into a man-wolf. His 4 limbs stepped on the ground. Accept your death. Chu Tian gave a cold laugh and let out a sigh of relief in his heart. Chu Xinghe had a deep mind. In truth, he did not want to share the treasure with Luo Xianglong and Yi Tianlang, so he deliberately said this. Otherwise, with Chu Xinghe's ability, how could he not see that Yi Tianlang would only die if he charged forward now? That's good. If they work together. Chu Tian did not have a high chance of winning, but now he had a chance. You want to cripple me? Why don't you ask my puppet if it agrees? The puppet behind Chu Tian took a step forward and sent a punch at Yi Tianlang. Yi Tianlang was not an ordinary person. He suddenly jumped in the air and used the air as a stepping board to retreat 4-5 meters away, dodging the puppet's destructive punch. Insignificant tricks. Do you think this kind of thing can stop me? Not bad. The reason the puppet could be successful in the labyrinth was because of the low intelligence of the monster. With Yi Tianlang's rich battle experience, he would not fight the puppet head-on. As long as he went around the puppet and attacked Chu Tian, it would be fine. Even if he could not beat the puppet, killing Chu Tian was as easy as flipping his hand. Who would have thought that Chu Tian would reveal a strange smile? You're wrong about this. A giant palm slapped at Yi Tianlang from behind. Yi Tianlang was shocked. A sneak attack. When he reacted, it was already too late. This palm heavily hit Yi Tianlang's body, directly shattering his protective spirit energy and slapped him heavily in front of Chu Tian. The second puppet. This guy controlled 2 puppets. It turned out that while Chu Tian controlled his puppet to temporarily force Yi Tianlang to retreat, he released his divine sense and controlled the giant's heart left behind by Nangong Yun. At the same time, he controlled Nangong Yun's puppet to slap Yi Tianlang. How powerful was the puppet? Even if Yi Tianlang was not seriously injured to death, he temporarily lost his defense. The puppet's heart in Chu Tian's hand flashed. The puppet in front of him clenched its hands and smashed down heavily like a pendulum. Yi Tianlang roared unwillingly and directly turned into a white light and disappeared. The stray dog young master only has this much ability. Chu Tian took control of the puppets that Yun Yao had left behind. The 3 puppets stood in a row in front of him, assuming a defensive stance. Chu Xinghe was as calm as water, as if he had already guessed this result. Luo Xianglong had a look of surprise. How is this possible? He can control multiple puppets at the same time. Could his spiritual energy be split? This is the power of his divine sense. Chu Xinghe coldly said, his divine sense has already surpassed the mind's eye realm, so he can leave his body and control the puppets from afar. What? Surpassed the mind's eye realm? This was unheard of. Chu Xinghe then said, Brother Luo, do you have confidence? Luo Xianglong quickly calmed down. That trash Yi Tianlang really can't do anything. Since it's like this, I'll do it. Chu Xinghe watched as Luo Xianglong walked out and a cold taunt flashed in his eyes. Chu Tian stood in the center of the light mirror array with the 3 puppets' hearts revolving around him. The 3 scarred puppets stood in front of him as he calmly said, Do you also want to test the strength of the puppets? Puppets? Luo Xianglong gave a proud laugh as he took out a talisman that released a mysterious power. He placed it on his body as he angrily roared, They're just toys. The talisman suddenly released a strong light. Luo Xianglong turned into a 20-meter-tall giant, even larger than the giant puppets. With a single punch, one of the giant puppets was smashed to pieces. Then, with lightning speed, he kicked the other giant puppet, sending it flying to the corner of the wall. Finally, his 2 arms came out like 2 dragons coming out of the sea, directly shattering the chest of the last puppet. Ruthless. The 3 puppets walked over, but their bodies were already broken and their defensive runes were no longer effective. Luo Xianglong had used a transformation talisman to increase his battle strength by a large amount. Combined with the Luo family's terrifying close combat cultivation technique, the three puppets did not even have a chance to fight back as they were torn apart by Luo Xianglong. As expected, they also had some gains in the giant's labyrinth. Luo Xianglong had used the talisman to turn into a giant, increasing his battle strength by 5-6 times, reaching the true soul realm. His battle strength far surpassed the puppets. This also meant that his pure battle strength was not inferior to the puppets. The most important thing was that compared to the puppets that did not have any intelligence, Luo Xianglong had cultivation techniques and martial arts. This was definitely very terrifying. Without these toys, Luo Xianglong's voice became deep and terrifying as he roared out word by word, "I'll be able to crush your bones one by one. To thank you for opening the treasure for me, my movements will be a bit faster. One of us will definitely obtain the treasure." Chu Tian watched the three puppets being destroyed, but he remained calm the entire time. He did not even blink, "But that person will not be you." Chu Tian gently waved his hand. A beam of light shined from the main mirror. Luo Xianglong's expression changed. Could it be? He seemed to realize something and wanted to escape, but it was too late. Was there anything in this world that was faster than light? When the beam of light shined on the mirror, it was reflected 30-40 times. Finally, it turned into an incomparably strong energy that slammed into the giant that Luo Xianglong had turned into. No! Luo Xianglong gave a pitiful cry as he was pushed to the end of the hall. The beam of light pierced through his chest. A white light flashed. Luo Xianglong was also sent out of the trial space. Chu Tian acted like he had done something insignificant as his eyes fell onto Chu Xinghe. His calm and gentle attitude was like he was looking at an old friend. "Heavenly Sword young master, you've made 2 mistakes. The first is that you shouldn't have hurt the people by my side, and the second is that you shouldn't have sent your teammates to their deaths." Chu Xinghe coldly said, "So what?" Chu Tian replied, "I'll personally kill you. Actually, I could have sent you out from the beginning, but I didn't do that. Instead, I let you go so that I could open this treasure." Chu Xinghe's laughter was as deep and terrifying as an owl's. "Your biggest mistake is underestimating my strength." Chu Xinghe formed a sword seal. The golden sword suddenly split into 2 into 4. Finally, it split into 16 swords that surrounded Chu Xinghe's body at a high speed, reaching a speed that was hard to see with the naked eye. "You think you can defeat me?" Chu Xinghe's body slowly floated into the air. He was like a peerless sword god, his sharp eyes filled with arrogance. His cold and emotionless voice filled the hall, as sharp as a sword. "I'll let you know how stupid that thought is." Chu Tian gave a laugh. "I don't think so." You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.